Good evening. This is the Ridgewood Village Council Public Workshop. The date is March 1st, 2023. The time is 7:30. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of a scheduled meeting, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Perrin. Here. Councilmember Reynolds.
Here.
Councilmember Whites.
Here.
Councilmember Winograd.
Here.
Mayor Vagianos.
Here. Will you all please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now take public comments. I ask that all people address the council with the respect and dignity that we address you with. It is simply an attempt that we all live and work together. Thank you.
It's limited to 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and address. Could you just push the microphone? There's a button, and you'll see a green light go on.
Frank the B-Man Mortimer, 426 Van Buren Street, Ridgewood, New Jersey. I'm here to talk about No Mow in May, which you'll be discussing later today. This is really a great initiative. It got a lot of press last year because it started in Appleton, Wisconsin, because it came over from the UK. And what's exciting about it is how many different entities here in town are involved in this. We have Parks and Rec, we have Green Ridgewood, the high school, and our library. And so it's a fantastic way to bring all these different people together, and it's also going to help with our Bee City USA certification, which, as you may recall, Ridgewood was the first Bee City USA in New Jersey and in the Northeast, which is great to tell other towns. So what the purpose of this is to have volunteers not mow their lawn in the month of May. Why? Because it's good for pollinators. It provides habitat as well as food sources for all sorts of different things. Yes, I'm the bee man, but there's also lots of other pollinators that will benefit from this. And all that would be required is that people have to sign up, so we have a list of who's going to do it, and then just keep their lawnmower in their garage for the month. The benefit, in addition to the pollinators, is by not using all those lawnmowers, it's going to cut down on the pollution, noise, and everything else for the month. So with that said, it's a great benefit for so many, and it will also spur a lot of conversations, positive, about the environment, because how our lawns are currently maintained is a vast wasteland. Chemicals are dumped into the dirt to have this green blanket that serves no one. So if we can start moving to a more natural environment, it's going to be good for everyone. So I hope that when you discuss it, the council people will see the benefit of this. You'll vote in favor of it. And in the month of May, I hope you will participate and not cut your lawn as well. Thank you. Buzz on and be well.
Thank you, Frank. I just want to say that our public comment section is 40 minutes. We go over that because we have people on hybrid access who do want to get in. And if we have time, we will take more people. But our policy is that we will take 10 people from the audience, and then we will begin to go through hybrid access. So I just want to let everybody know because I see we have more than 10 people in line.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Rossi from 516 West Saddle River Road. I'm here to speak about the recent decision to consider increasing the size of the proposed field at the Shetler property. Councilman White was nice enough a few days ago to hear the neighbors concerned in a small meeting. In that meeting, he offered to relay our questions to the village engineer. I thank him for that. I would like to read those questions, which I have also given to Evan. Question 1. As the council has asked you, meaning the village engineer, to increase the field size, do you feel confident your team can adequately navigate all health, historic, safety, wildlife, and traffic concerns in redesigning the space? 2, if not, what is your suggestion for areas where the village should source independent experts? Question 3, what would you estimate the grading depth would be for a larger field? Question 4, is the engineering department taking into consideration the result of the 2019 archaeological assessment during these redesigns and potential grading? Question 5, excuse me. If a turf field is installed, are you considering potential contamination to surrounding private wells? Question 6, what testing would be needed for a turf field? Percolation tests sometimes require 150,000-gallon holding tanks for DEP testing. Would we need this? How would we accommodate this? Question 7, leaf collection during fall months further narrows West Saddle River Road. Do you think added traffic during those times would be problematic? Question 8, what logic are you using when calculating the ratio of field size to designated parking? And do you feel confident in making these calculations? Question 9, can you outline what areas would have a significant cost increase when considering a larger field? Question 10, do you think a smaller field or larger field would have an easier path for SHPO approval? In closing, I would like to say I support the small grass field originally proposed for the Shetler property. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Good evening. My name is Fretra De Silva. I live at 521 West Saddle River Road. I'm here to speak about the Shetler property. I am in support of a small grass field for the Shetler property. Over the last week, since last weekend, about 200 interested residents of Ridgewood and Bergen County have signed a petition for the council regarding the Shetler property, and I'll read part of that because time is limited. We, the undersigned residents of Ridgewood, petition the Village Council not to reopen the Shetler plan approved by Resolution 18-236 without 1, a full assessment of the impact that would result from any changes to the plan, and 2, a fact-based analysis of the comprehensive impact on the village and the state of New Jersey made by the development of the Shetler property. Any changes without a full assessment will ignore the following concerns: due process to which Ridgewood residents are entitled, health implications to children and residents, traffic patterns that will impact safety, wildlife and environmental preservation, accurate assessment of flooding impact, preservation of historic district, accurate assessment of field demand, and clear and transparent budget for new plans. These concerns and others must be reviewed, and a detailed, fact-based plan should be presented to the residents of Ridgewood in a public forum for discussion and debate for the general welfare of the village. For clarity, I'll read what was considered Resolution 18-236, which I understand there's some debate whether it was actually approved, but this is the basis upon which people signed this petition. That resolution was entitled Approved Field Design for Shetler Park. Approves the design of Shetler Park, which will include the following: a 75-yard by 50-yard multipurpose field, a children's playground, a 44-spot parking lot, walking trails, a berm with a tree line across the top, fencing, and trees planted along the street. I would emphasize the concern of the residents who signed the petition are a change in the elements to this plan. It's, it may not have been approved, but the elements, that's the basis upon which they signed the petition. And again, I'll emphasize, like Matt did, I'm certainly in support of a small grass field for that park. Thank you.
Thank you, Fretja.
Hello, my name is Christina Million. I live at 530 West Saddle River Road, and I am also in support of a small grass field. Over the last week, the East Side community of Ridgewood had held meetings with 3 different council members, and we thank you all for that. But each time we walked away very alarmed. It's been distressing to hear that the council refuses to conduct any impact studies before moving forward with the proposed larger field. If you won't conduct studies for the current East Side residents of Ridgewood to better understand the impact of a newly proposed field design to our health and safety, then I would implore you to follow your own 2019 commissioned report, the Hunter Research Assessment, available online, that stated that an archaeological survey of the property be completed if significant ground disturbance is planned, as it likely houses Revolutionary War artifacts. You might argue that this report was conducted by the previous council, but it doesn't matter. You're the same governing body, and this is about preserving our history. The historical value of the Zabriskie Shetler house and the Shetler property to the community and the state of New Jersey is invaluable. However, recent plans by the council put at risk the integrity of the land. You've spoken a lot about how you want to make money from the property. Well, we are 3 years shy of celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States, and these national efforts are known as America 250. Roger Williams, the state historian of the New Jersey Society of the Sons of the American Revolution, and Charles Morgan, the president of that organization, wrote to you all this morning. And he included other department heads, state officials, and the press on copy. Quote, New Jersey is rich in Revolutionary War heritage. As we look towards the American 250 celebrations, we have a tremendous opportunity to spur heritage tourism. And even New Jersey's own governor, Phil Murphy, recently said, heritage tourism is an important and growing part of our tourism economy. If we can't recognize where we came from, we won't be able to know where we are going. There is so much we could do with the approved Shetler Park plan that would align with this larger moment and put our town on a national stage in a very good light. Shetler is a 7-acre triangle with 1 acre already taken by a berm against Route 17 North and another acre to be used for roadway parking. It is impossible to fit a full-size rectangular field, a children's playground, walking paths, handicap parking in that remaining space. If you want to optimize for speed, the historic property should be turned into a full-service park, not a large sports field, with recreational and educational elements for a wide range of people. Less disturbance means less studies are needed, and it also means less money. Ridgewood has allocated as much as $7 million of taxpayer money on this project already, and with the goal of preserving a historical site. You must see why the community is perplexed that a new council that has only been here for 2 months wants to suddenly tear up the remains of the Revolutionary War and waste millions of dollars that have already been spent to put in a giant soccer field. If you won't prioritize the health of the East Side residents, please consider saving our nation's history. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Jacqueline Hone, 30 Carriage Lane.
Jackie, could you speak into the mic, please?
Sure.
Thank you so
Jacqueline
much.
Hone, 30 Carriage Lane. Just to add that the council members Evan White, Siobhan Winograd, and Mayor Paul Vaggiano recently met with residents and friends of the Shetler neighborhood. The purpose of these meetings organized by residents was to discuss the following: the 2017 Zabriskie-Shetler Plan as approved and adopted by Resolution 18236 by the Ridgewood Village Council on July 18, 2018. And how that approved plan, now in jeopardy, balanced the needs of the impacted neighborhood, sports groups, conservationists, historians, and taxpayers. A large field, like what is being proposed, encroaches on all historical elements and is a misrepresentation of the recreational needs of the local residents and neighborhood. Even more detrimental, a full-size field means clear cutting of the 7-acre parcel. Eradicating the tree green-filled parcel that filters out light, noise, visual, airborne particulates, pollutants, and air toxins emitted by diesel trucks and cars from Route 17. At great length, residents pleaded for council members to follow through on recommendations from professionals, experts, and their very own appointed ad hoc committee to complete independent expert impact studies before voting on a new plan. Health impacts, safety, traffic, and historical assessment. We asked to what degree will we be impacted? We don't know. Neither did the mayor or any of the council members. What was most alarming was that all said they would not agree to any impact studies, archaeological survey of the land, or follow through on the approved plan already in place. With no regard to everything that we had discussed, substantiated health and safety concerns, they each walked away saying the goal was to proceed as fast as possible with a larger field to accommodate the needs of special interest sports groups, not the local neighborhood. No impact studies. Just like that, the residents face being stripped of due process and are now left with the threat of unknown health, safety, noise, and traffic risks. I hope after hearing this, as it enters into public record, the full council reconsiders what they are proposing. Pause for a bit and think this through. Get experts with comprehensive impact studies to design a park plan, not a field, that will mitigate concerns and ensure the health and safety of the public. Do the right thing, not the fastest thing. Those listening and media, please go to shetlerpark.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Good evening. My name is Joe DeMarco. I'm a resident at 572 West Saddle River Road, which is on the corner of Racetrack Road and down the road from the Shetler property. I'm a father of 2 girls, currently 5 and 2 years old, and I'm a physician. As a resident of the Shetler neighborhood, I support the development of a multi-use park, including a small grass field, children's playground, and passive area, including walking paths. This development would not only be of great value to the whole Ridgewood community, but to the surrounding neighborhood families. The most recently proposed plan appears to be in such early development that it does not adequately address the elements that impact the integrity of both the field and the neighborhood. Such concerns, including noise, flooding, traffic, and safety, need to be addressed before development. For instance, relying on traffic, sound, or environmental studies from 2015 while almost weekly modifying the proposal and blueprints shows poor planning and execution. Previous fields have been developed with improper foresight, leading to poor results, and thus the current need for a new field to act as a Band-Aid for the systemic problem of development without appropriate research and execution. Using something like a 2015 traffic study is like using a federal census study from 8 years ago to determine current village needs. Nor would you want your physician to use an out-of-date study from 8 years ago to determine the optimal treatment for his or her patient. Why should we treat our neighborhoods any differently? I have serious concerns regarding the effect of a full-size playing field on the traffic and safety for our neighborhood. West Saddle River Road is already a busy street with cars directly accessing the road from Route 17, where the speed limit is 55 miles per hour. The park entrance would be in close proximity to Route 17 West Saddle River Road exit, requiring rapid deceleration. Currently, only part of the street has accessible sidewalks for people to walk their dogs or children to ride their bikes. Some of these sidewalks already routinely flood with even the smallest rainstorm. I can give you 2 such examples of the dangers of vehicular traffic on West Saddle River Road. When I moved into my house in 2018, I found my fence to be destroyed with car parts in my lawn. This was due to a speeding vehicle losing control and causing significant property damage. Another such event occurred 1 month ago, where a car sped around West Saddle River Road corner onto Racetrack Road toward Route 17, crashing into a parked car. I ask you, what are the plans for ensuring our neighborhood remains safe for pedestrian traffic? Additionally, based on current plans, there does not appear to be enough on-site parking to accommodate the dozens of cars that would be present for sporting event participants and observers, playground participants, and path walkers. Does this mean that cars will need to park on the street? This would cause further disruptions in traffic patterns on the road that are currently only accommodates 1 lane of traffic in each direction. I ask the council to genuinely consider these neighborhood concerns when voting on each element of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. Excuse me. Ed Sievers, 168 North Maple Avenue. If anyone doesn't know where that is, it's directly across the street from this wonderful complex here, Veterans Park. Greeden Pool, Maple Park, a very well-used athletic complex. I'm a resident of Ridgewood for the last 45 years. I've lived in this house for 38 years, bought the house when we only had 2 kids. All 4 of our kids have benefited from the sports programs and facilities that we have in town. I've been active in youth sports for 35 years. I've enjoyed it even after my kids are long out of the program. Not only involved with youth sports, but I also was an original member of the Open Space Committee. And our first successful purchase being Habernickel Park, which I think is a wonderful example of what can be done and what was intended to be done with open space preservation. Certainly, that was what the plan was with Shetler. I realize that a number of people have referred to an original plan. Well, if you really want to go back to the original plan, the plan that was proposed, that was circulated, that was discussed by the then council, that approved the purchase and was used for obtaining grants, which were used to purchase the property, all laid out a full-size field with the overlapping 90-foot baseball field. One of the reasons for the baseball field of that size was because recently, before that, we had lost the use of the BF Middle School 90-foot field, so we went from 2 dedicated 90-foot fields down to 1. There's no question, and there was no question at the time when the original open space plan was adopted, that Ridgewood is woefully short of the required amount of field space, active field space, for youth sports as well as adult sports, that we need more based upon the population density of Ridgewood, and especially the youth population, the school age density in Ridgewood. I know that the current proposal changes it from a grass field to an artificial turf field. We've learned that our artificial turf fields in floodplains suffer when we have floods. We certainly could use an artificial turf field where we're not worried about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Hi, my name is Mickey Sanfilippo. I live at 706 Hillcrest Road. I am 10 years old, and I've lived in Ridgewood since I was 2. This is my 4th year playing Ridgewood baseball. Spring rec, travel, and fall. I love baseball. I loved it for as long as I can remember. My mom says I was born with a bat in one hand and a ball in the other. But as I have gotten older, it's not just the game I love. It's being on the team, making new friends, learning and growing with them in a sport that has taught me so much. How to be kind to the other team's pitcher when you win in the bottom of the 9th inning. How to hold your head high when you strike out at the end of the game, but tried your best. How to support your teammates when they're having a bad day. Hard work, not shortcuts. That's what pays off. But these are not lessons that only I have learned. These are lessons that every kid who steps out onto the field learns. How to be a good teammate. How to be a good sportsman. How to be the best player you can be. How to push yourself to go to the next level when you think it's out of reach. But none of that happens if you don't have a field to play on. So many times last year, I remember my mom or dad telling me we weren't able to have a practice because there were no fields available, or our game was canceled because the fields were flooded from the storm the night before. Or worse, we have to play our home games on another town's field because Ridgewood just doesn't have a field available. And it's not just one team that the field shortage affect. It's every team at every level. In the 4 years that I've been playing Ridgewood baseball, it's been a problem every season. My mom told me that this village council, all of you, have a chance to fix this problem. To give me and thousands of other young Ridgewood kids a beautiful new field. One that won't flood every time it rains. One that will have a stand so my grandma can watch me play. Maybe even lights and a scoreboard. like the ones they have in Wyckoff and Glenrock. When you go to those towns and you walk out onto their fields, you feel a little bit of magic. We don't have that in Ridgewood. We don't even have enough fields to fit all of our games on. I know there are people who don't want to build a new sports field because they think it will be noisy and bring lots of people to Ridgewood. But I can tell you as a kid, I would love to live next to a ball field where I could play pickup games with my friends or walk across the street, sit in the stands, and cheer them on. Having a new ballpark near your house, it's what kids dream of. I am proud to play Ridgewood baseball. We have the best coaches and a great program, but we need fields. Please vote to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. You're a fine young speaker.
Great job, Mickey.
My name is Jack Petrogallo, and I live at 537 Highland Avenue in Ridgewood. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I promise I'll be brief. I'm 12 years old, and I love baseball. I have been playing Ridgewood baseball and other sports in Ridgewood for as long as I can remember. I have seen firsthand how difficult it can be to get field time, whether it be for a practice or an actual game. I believe that creating new fields, and in particular a baseball field, at the Shetler property would be a great benefit to the village of Ridgewood and provide me and my little brother, as well as many other kids in the community, more opportunity to be active and to play the sports we love so much. Thank you.
Nicely said. We have a lot of good young speakers here. I just want to say that this will be our last speaker, but we have time at the end of the meeting, which is an unlimited amount of time. So, because after this, we're going to go to our hybrid access speakers.
Thank you. My name is Jen Lee, and I live at 561 Bennington Terrace. I'd like to share my thoughts about the Shetler property that I put into a letter I sent to the council when I was unable to attend last week's meeting. I pass Shetler every day as I walk and drive in and out of the neighborhood, an area that has been my home since 1996. I've now seen a rendition of Shetler with a full-size field, and my feelings remain the same. I continue to support a full-size field at Shetler. Each of my 3 children participated in sports, rec, travel, freshman, JV, and varsity. When Ridgewood bought the Shetler property in 2009, I eagerly looked forward to enjoying a park there with them. Today, my oldest is in her 3rd year of living and working in the city, and my youngest is a freshman in college, which is to say I'll likely have to wait for the next generation to enjoy a park there with family. Even when my children were participating in sports, I remember the difficulty of getting field time for the older kids. I could share story after story about canceled practices, dangerous fields, fields crafted out of makeshift plots. What they call a soccer field at Glen School and a practice field at Lower BF are prime examples of the inadequate and unsafe solutions that we've tried to come up with in this village. I do not need to be convinced that our youth athletes need another full-sized field. I also support a turf field. If we're going to build a field there, let's get as much use out of it as possible. When Hurricane Ida hit in September 2021, Vets Field was flooded and damaged. I work near Vets, and I saw how long it took to get it back in shape. Months later, in the spring of 2022, it was still not ready for team practices. In contrast, the high school stadium was back in action in that fall of 2021. And we don't need something as extreme as a flood to even disrupt grass field use. Just a few days of heavy rain leave them unplayable for too long. And then overuse does the same thing. Ask anyone about Citizens. I would like to address an issue some residents have raised about noise from Route 17 making Shetler inhospitable to competitions. I attended a varsity baseball game at Morristown High School years ago, and only much after the game did I learn that that field sits right along Route 287. That's a major interstate during rush hour. I did not notice any traffic noise compromising the play or my spectating. I've also attended a soccer game on a field in Hoboken that is surrounded on 2 sides by the major thoroughfares that going to and from the Lincoln Tunnel. And again, there were no issues. My point in bringing up these examples is there are solutions to all these problems that we are talking about. I'm tired of the we can'ts, and I'm encouraged that our council seems to embrace we can. Thank you for taking the time to discuss the opportunity we have here at Shetler. I ask that you move forward as quickly as possible, making smart choices that take into account the needs of the whole village and me and my neighbors who live right by Shetler. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to our callers on hybrid access. And our first caller this evening is Ellie Gruber. Ellie, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you very much. Ellie Gruber, 229 South Irving Street. I'm here to correct a statement. And by the way, it's a tough act to follow with those great kids, so I'm at a disadvantage right away. Anyway, I wanted to correct a statement that was made last week by one of the council members talking about the historic nature of the Shetler property. Just want to go back to say that in 2020, an engineer named Brian Duddy sent a rendering to SHPO, copying only the engineers Nancy Bigos and Janet Fricke. He did not copy the council. He did not copy the manager. He sent this directly to SHPO. The plan submitted was not the one that the council agreed upon. It had that we had agreed a mid-sized field, parking lot, berm, and trees. I'm going to read Jennifer Lyons' response to him. She only sent it to him, but I think this council has a copy of it. She said, as you are in July in 2020, as you are aware, the Zabriskie Shetler House, including block 4704, lot 10 in its entirety, is listed on the New Jersey and National Registers of Historic Places. Thus, any undertaking by the state, county, or municipality that may affect the property requires authorization from SHPO prior to construction under the New Jersey Register of Historic Places Act. All project review are evaluated under the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation. These standards require, among other things, that new uses for historic properties will require minimal changes to the property, standard 1, that the historic character of the property will be retained and preserved, standard 2, and that related new construction will not destroy historic features and spatial relationships that characterize the property. And new work will be compatible with the historic property to protect its integrity and that of its environment. The historic property includes not only the building itself, but also its surroundings. The proposed park development, as documented on the plans dated January 17th, 2020, which never copied any member of the council or the manager, includes and she only responded to him, which was her mistake, includes a paved driveway and parking area, concrete sidewalks, picnic area, lighting, as well as pickleball courts, soccer field, playground, concession stand, gazebos elsewhere in the property. These elements surround the building on all sides and will significantly alter the setting of the historic property. The HPO understands that the subject property was purchased to provide recreational facilities to residents in an underserved area of the village, and I mean underserved. We believe that this goal may be achieved while minimizing the effects on the historic property through a redesign and perhaps some scaling back of the proposed recreational facilities.
Ellie, you're out of time. Thank you so much.
Time is up?
Yep.
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
I can provide this letter. I just wanted to correct something that was said last week.
And we appreciate that. Thank you. Our next caller is James. James, would you state your name and address for the record?
Sorry, I have to change that. This is Susan Ruan, 705 Kingsbridge Lane.
Good evening, Susan.
Good evening. Sorry, I have to change that name.
All good.
I am in support of a small grass field for the Shetler property, and I thank the council members and mayor for meeting with the residents. I know this is a little history that was already brought up. At the December 7th, 2022 village council meeting, the village engineer spoke about how he worked with SHPO for a year on approving the plan. the Shetler design was signed and sealed, and the village attorney stated that the Shetler plans qualified as public records. As stated at the meeting, even the incoming newly elected council members received copies of the December 7th plan, but neither had any comments about it. The mayor, then council member, was only concerned with the plan being delayed. He even wanted the plan to be marked as a working draft, which the village attorney stated could not be done. At the January 25th meeting, when Shetler was brought up again for the December 7th plan approval, a well-orchestrated group of sports representatives spoke about derailing the Shetler plan and the need for a bigger field. Plans were quickly disregarded. All of the village engineers' work with SHPO, and the village council members asked them to create new plans with a large all-purpose field plus a 90-foot baseball pitch. Equally as quick was a newly elected council member breaking her campaign promise to finish Shetler and wanting to revamp the design with a turf and light field, constantly citing previous plans that were rejected by other village council members. The village council member was still eager to pursue the plans despite the village engineer explaining that SHPO wouldn't approve turf and lights, and the Historic Preservation Committee needed those approvals, adding additional bureaucracy. The new council obsession with turning Shetler into a large all-purpose field needs to be explained, since they plan to spend thousands of taxpayer dollars on hiring an attorney in hopes to bypass SHPO regulations. Yet, the village council hasn't discussed fields like Citizens, which the Maroons list as a large field, constantly put temporary lights, doesn't need SHPO approval, is not in a FEMA flood zone, has adjacent parking as a viable option for an all-purpose field, or Heppernackle, which has 10 acres and a bigger field. And the little boy was very cute, and that would help him go to a field close to his house for playing ball. Another viable option is the old firing range or proposed firing range off Route 17 near the park and ride. The area has 10 acres and, again, quicker than having SHPO approval and paying taxpayer dollars for a needless attorney. I thank you for your time.
Susan, thank you so much. And the next person up is someone named Susan. Is it the same person?
Yeah.
Okay, then we will move on to Alyssa.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
We can. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Of course, Alyssa Matthews, 941 North Monroe Street. Good evening. I currently live around the corner from Habernickel, but spent my childhood and the majority of my adult years on Kenwood Road, around the corner from Shetler. I am strongly against the large field currently being proposed at Shetler. A small grass field would fit and be much more appropriate for the size and location of this site, especially given that it is right off of Route 17. And as one of my neighbors said, we also had an incident years ago where my father was actually hit on Route 17 in his car it was actually a police chase, and he was hit right over there on West Saddle River Road. So it is a very busy area. I enjoy living by Habernickel, especially I love the walking trail there and feel that the same should be done at Shetler. Please reconsider this large field being proposed due to the many, many negative safety impacts this will cause. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alyssa. Next up is Joanne.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great.
Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Joanne Loika, 685 Kingsbridge Lane. Good evening. I believe it's imperative that, just wait a minute, my message goes. sorry, I'm just looking at my notes.
Take your time.
That the Ridgewood save as many trees in town as possible. So in that, thinking that, I urge you to please, please do not overbuild and take any more trees down than is necessary for a passive park, a small, all-purpose field with grass, and a playground at the Shetler property. There are just too many issues why not to put such a big field in this smaller piece of property. A plan was discussed for 3 years and was finally a realistic and appropriate plan. It was in place in 2017. I urge you to please follow through with that plan. In addition, as Councilwoman Winograd has said on her Facebook reel when running for council, I too believe that all parks should be interesting and special, and as is Tabernacle Park. When this park was being done, there was a group that wanted a larger field, but instead the town listened to the community of people surrounding that park, and a beautiful, serene park was built instead. Don't the people surrounding the Shetler property deserve the same? Maybe it's time we remedy the flooding instead of over-planning on Shetler Park. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next up is Mike. Can you hear me, Mike?
I can hear you.
Terrific. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Mike Chepkavage, 241 Fairmount Road. I'm a member of the Ridgewood Lacrosse Board. I just want to call in and state our support of an additional full-size turf field, ideally with lights, here in Ridgewood. I see this as a great opportunity to add another field to town. We're clearly very short. We've got 4 children here in town. We witnessed firsthand, many games, many practices canceled. As with many of the parents here in town, we see the difficulty in getting field space for our kids. I think this is just a great opportunity. I want to thank the council members for all their work. And again, RLA is in full support of a full-size field, ideally turf, ideally lights. If there's anything else we can do, please feel free to reach out to me. My mother also grew up here in Ridgewood. My uncle Dave Connolly was part of the leadership committee in Wyckoff that helped with the open space plan there to develop some of their turf fields. Many of us here in town have seen what impact that has had on the youth sports in that town. We'd love to have better sports facilities for our kids, for not just lacrosse, for all sports. I think it's a great opportunity, and we're in full support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mike. And that's all we have on hybrid. We're going to squeeze one more person in.
Thank you. My name is Angela Lehmans, 517 East Saddle River Road and 541 East Saddle River Road. And I'm here to protest the proposed changes to the Shetler plan. So in a prior session, the mayor was very eloquent, and he summarized the issues into 4 buckets: flooding, fields, children, and the neighborhood. So in terms of the first point, flooding, supposedly Shetler is going to be the solution to the other fields being flooded. That's just not true. There's no guarantee that the Shetler field would be flood-proof. It's on Saddle River Road, right? I've lived on that side of town for almost 60 years, and during Hurricanes Irene, Sandy, and David and Floyd, the water reached even to the houses next to Route 17. Paving over for parking, the berms as a wall, and having artificial turf will mean that the fields will flood, and Ridgewood will have 5 flooded fields. Fields. Ridgewood doesn't need another field that gets used by less than 25% of households. Ridgewood needs another year-round, multi-use, inclusive park that can be used by all inhabitants, young, old, handicapped, with children, and without, something like the duck pond, which I know is a county facility. Children. Everyone says this is for the good of the children, having these fields. But what about the health, welfare, safety of the children in the local neighborhood, who will be negatively impacted by the increased noise, the pollution, and endangered by the increased traffic on the very narrow country road? It's an accident waiting to happen when a soccer mom or a football dad hits a neighborhood child riding his bike along West Saddle River Road. The council has been warned many, many times about safety issues and the road width, and you're choosing to ignore it. The neighborhood. Cutting down all the trees and putting in a large field with lights is going to negatively impact the neighborhood. And for what? I know baseball is important, but let's be honest, it's a game, right? It's a hobby. What about quality of life of the people who live in the neighborhood? Why are you, the council, putting quality of play of a game above the quality of life of people who live in that neighborhood? I just don't understand it. So in closing, if you really care about those 4 issues, Paul, which is flooding, fields, children, and the neighborhood, if you care about those 4 things, honor the existing plan that represents all of Ridgewood as you swore to do with your oath of office. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. That is going to be the last comment that we take for public comments now. We do have more public comments at the end of the night. So anyone who wants to stick around, we are happy to hear everyone else. So we're going to continue with our agenda this evening. And we're going to go to the village manager report. Before we do, I want to thank everyone in attendance tonight. First, I love to see everyone come out and show us their passion and to show it to us respectfully, as you all did tonight. Everyone on both sides of this question has very, very strong feelings. And this is the way we will figure it all out, when we can speak to each other passionately but respectfully. So I want to thank everyone for that. Heather?
Okay. Council chat is held the first Saturday of every month. The next council chat is this Saturday, March 4th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Village Hall courtroom. Please call for reservations, 201-670-5500, extension 2207. Walk-ins are welcome. However, reservations will have priority. A summer job fair will be held next Wednesday, March 8th, 6 to 8 p.m. in the Annie Zuzi Youth Center. It will be focused on young adults, 16 and older, for summer employment. There will be a wide variety of employment opportunities presented. Household hazardous waste collection event, Bergen County Utilities Authority, is on March 11th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the BCUA, which is the foot of Empire Boulevard in Moonachie. They accept aerosol cans, antifreeze, batteries, blacktop sealers, all types of paints and varnishes. It's open, rain, or shine, no commercial vehicles. Health programs, West Bergen Mental Health Care, Ridgewood Health Department, and Ridgewood Parks and Recreation present How to Spot School-Based Anxiety, Tools, Tips, and Techniques. This in-person workshop will include a discussion on signs, symptoms, and causes, as well as tangible coping strategies and resources for parents to help support their children. That's also on March 8th, 7 to 8 p.m. here at the Village Hall Senior Lounge. Please register on Community Pass. March 30th from 10:30 a.m. to 12 noon, there will be an in-person workshop with the Alzheimer's Association. There will be more information forthcoming. Village Council meetings are broadcast live from the Village Hall courtroom on the Village website, Channel 34 on FiOS. They are also available on Zoom or by phone or on YouTube. Upcoming meetings are, the next public meeting is March 8th, and then the April public meeting is April 12th. Those both, March 8th will begin at 8 p.m., April 12th will be 7:30 p.m., March 22nd and April 3rd are Village Council work sessions, and they begin at 7:30 p.m. Starting after March 8th, all of our meetings will begin at 7:30 p.m. instead of 8 o'clock. The next budget meeting will be held on March 6th at 5 p.m. It's being held here in the courtroom. You can come in person, you can watch it on Zoom, and you can also phone in. And there will be additional budget meetings scheduled in the future because we're not quite ready to introduce it yet. That's all I have.
Thank you, Heather. We're going to move to council reports. Evan?
Yeah, I'm not going to give a report tonight because I want to leave as much time as possible for comments at the end. I do just want to publicly thank Jackie Hone as well as Fletcher De Silva for hosting me with the Shetler folks on Sunday. It's a great conversation, and I thank you for opening your home up. The only suggestion I have for my fellow council members is there are 3 people who I think were online that did not get to speak. Rather than have them stand for the next 3 to 4 hours, perhaps we give them priority when we open public comments at the end.
Absolutely, so this way you don't have to stand until public comments reopen.
Yeah, it's going to be a long night, so yeah, take a seat.
Joan, Bob, and Linda, if you want to wait, we will put you first regardless of who is standing in line. So, Lorraine?
Thank you. The only thing I have to report is about Cashaw Shell. I just wanted to let everybody know that their website is up and running, and I wanted to give you, it's their 65th anniversary this year, and they've launched a citizens donation drive, which they've never done before, asking citizens for donations, and I think it's a fabulous idea to earn some money. So the website is www.cashawmemorialshell.com. And Heather, can we put that on the website for if anybody wants to get that? And please, if you have gone to the music festivals on Tuesdays and Thursdays every year, they're free. It's time to give a little money, give back. If you've never been to one of these music concerts, they're fabulous. No matter who's playing, it's always a great time every Tuesday and Thursday, starting in June through mid-August. It's fabulous. Enjoy. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Lorraine. Siobhan?
Sure. So Parks and Rec was canceled last night due to the snowstorm, but I too wanted to thank the neighbors for the invitation and coordinating it with me. I thought the conversation was very interesting. I'm incredibly grateful to everybody who reached out to discuss this project. So I also do want to just say, Joan, I'm so excited for your final comment when you come. And Joan is with the American Legion, and she's something super exciting to talk about, and I'm sorry you have to wait.
Thanks, Siobhan. Pam?
The Green Team submitted its application to Sustainable Jersey to reclaim their silver certification, and they will, when they get it, go on to looking for grants for environmental projects around town. The Central Business District Advisory Committee is planning a field trip to Westfield, New Jersey on March 24th to see how that town, which is kind of a sister town to Ridgewood, how they deal with parking, their parks, their stores, and all that sort of thing. The Pedestrian Tunnel Committee also met, and that's going to be later in the agenda. Similarly, Green Ridgewood is working on No Mow May, and we're going to be talking about that later as well. Earth Day is coming up. The steering committee met today. Mark your calendars for April 23rd. Earth Day is going to be in Memorial Park at Van Ness Square. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Pam. And we're going to move on to our agenda, the Shetler property update. I didn't know if you guys knew it was on the agenda tonight, but yeah, it is.
Okay, I'll have Chris Rudisauser come up. I know he's going to give us an update and then also talk about the newest plan that he has.
Good evening, Chris. Thank you for coming.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I hope you all got a set of 3 drawings that we printed out for you today.
We did.
Okay. These are some of the latest design ideas and options for the Shetler property, incorporating some of the more recent comments from the council, particularly with regard to situating a full-size field, a 40-60 softball field, and while also trying to preserve as much of the tree area as possible. The first drawing, concept number 20, is shaded to show areas where the trees would remain untouched, both bracketing the proposed entrance road and in the upper northwest corner. This drawing 20 shows the playground, a restroom with a overhang for shelter from adverse weather, and a parking lot that has room for 40 cars. Again, these drawings are very, very preliminary. We'll work on finalized drawings given the direction of the council.
Thank you, Chris. Does anybody have any questions so far?
I'm sure everyone does, but I do have a couple for you, Chris, if you can.
Okay.
So looking at this first drawing, compare it to some of the other drawings, the number of trees, because I see a lot of square footage here reserved for trees, the brown spots. Can you give me an idea in terms of the smaller field, how many more or less trees or more or less square feet of bush are being preserved with this plan versus maybe the earlier ones?
That's difficult to say. This drawing shows a full-size field.
Mm-hmm.
It also shows a different parking lot orientation than we had previously. We also show on here, as I mentioned, the 40-60 softball diamond. So we'd have to take a look at the earlier drawings, measure the tree area, and assign it a label, square footage, as we have on this drawing.
All right. And talk to me about safety. With this, are there any safety concerns for you in any way?
I'm quite confident with what we're doing at the park here on the interior. We did a speed study. Actually, the police department did an extensive speed study that was referenced tonight. It does date, I think, from 2015 or 16. If the council wishes, we could see if the police department can do it again. They did it for, I think, about a week. They put the automatic cameras out. Those cameras are very good because they're unobtrusive, and they log both the vehicle time and speed, so we get a good idea when there is a speeding event, what time of day it occurs, which direction it occurs. It's very informative. I think the council has seen that, the study that was previously done. If you have any questions on that, I think Officer J. Chuck, or Sergeant J. Chuck, excuse me, would be most qualified to answer them.
Any other safety concerns besides traffic?
No, not for traffic. I mean, it is a narrow street. The speed study showed that speeds can be a little bit elevated coming off of 17, but most people drop their speeds quite quickly. It is narrow. There was a comment made tonight about leaves. If leaves are an issue, and we see that, I can always send them one of our leaf vacs over there to clean it up. We did that this past year, hit trouble spots out of schedule, only because they're trouble spots.
And with the larger field versus the smaller field, is there any differences in pricing?
I think the larger field is going to cost more. Are you referring to synthetic field or a natural grass field?
I guess give me an idea on both. I'm trying to figure out how much more money this might cost us versus the smaller field.
We haven't priced out whether it's we haven't priced out a synthetic large or synthetic small field, nor have we priced out for grass. Prices are all over the place right now. We just took bids on our paving, and the numbers were interesting.
But in your view, would the smaller field versus larger field change the pricing dramatically?
The difference, maybe 20%.
Okay. You guys, I don't want to hog up this time. I'm sure everyone else has. I'm sure I'll come back.
Other questions?
Chris, thank you.
Yes.
Can you, so the smaller field is 50 by 75 yards?
That was one of the smaller fields in some of the earlier designs.
Right.
We did bump it up a little bit, and obviously what you're looking at tonight in your hands is a full-size soccer lacrosse field.
Can you give me the dimensions approximately in yardage? So,
I didn't bring those drawings with me.
Okay. Because if I recall, so the smaller field was 50 yards by 75, so that's 150 feet by, it was 225. I think the larger field was 75 yards by, does anybody know? 120 yards? Thank you. Okay. So that's 225 feet by 360 feet.
Well, if you're looking at the drawing before you tonight, the soccer field is listed at 330 feet in length and 210 feet in width. And the lacrosse field is 195 feet in width, and let me see what the length is, and the length is, oh, I don't have it on this. Probably about 350 feet.
Okay. So we're talking significantly larger than the 50 by 75 yard.
Yes.
I heard that SHPO came out this week. Can you give us an update on what they said?
Sure. We had a technical meeting with the State Historic Preservation Office, affectionately known as SHPO. They were also joined by a member of the Bergen County Historic Trust, I believe. We had a very good working meeting. This was a meeting that we had originally tried to have about 2.5, 3 years ago, but unfortunately we had this little thing called a pandemic that interfered. The SHPO folks are actually locked down pretty much in their homes. They are still not working in their offices, but they were able to come out. It was good that we were able to walk across the site. There was a number of key points they made very, very clear to myself, Nancy Bigos from Parks and Recreation, and our lead designer, Jovan Mahenzik. They strongly recommended that whatever the village does in this park development, they keep in mind encroachments to the historic house in mind. They keep in mind the historic sensitivity of the house, and that they couldn't emphasize enough to the three of us that any design we do should not have an encroachment that they cannot administratively approve. That would have to go to an organization called the Historic Sites Council. The Historic Sites Council, for those who may not be familiar with them, they're kind of like a land use board for historic preservation properties. Their body or their makeup is primarily architects, archaeologists, and people with a very strong interest in historic preservation. One of the things that SHPO made it clear to us is artificial turf would be considered an encroachment. We'd kick the project, if the council wanted me to design that, we'd kick the project over to historic sites. Full-time lighting would also kick it over to historic sites. We asked about using like the small diesel generators. They didn't give us a solid yes or a solid no on that.
Okay.
We're not allowed to, they strongly recommend that we don't do any trenching on the site unless we have a historic archaeologist with us. That has been the case with work around the Shetler house when we did the trenching for the electric conduit and for sewer lateral, and for the water service. We had a representative from Hunter Associates oversee the excavation in case the trenching encountered any artifacts or anything of historic significance. Let's see. The SHPO folks made it very clear to us that the entire property is considered historic to the State Historic Preservation, and that is due to the Revolutionary War period archaeological potential. We have done some preliminary investigations related to archaeological conditions. We would now have to do a Phase 1B, would be the next step, and that would have to be submitted with any development plans for the park.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Phase 1 what?
We would have to do a Phase 1B investigation.
What is that?
Sorry to sound stupid, but that comes after the Phase 1A investigation. It's primarily, it's primarily a metal detector scanning. If they get a hit on it, they'll do like a post-hole dig to see what they encounter, whether it is of any significance or whether it's a piece of trash. Similar to what you might see in Graydon Park every now and then, you'll see people out with a metal detector looking for change, lost rings, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. They also mentioned that site development shall limit visual obstructions to the historic home. We know that because one of our earlier proposals had been trees along West Saddle River Road in front of the home. They had told us, nah, we don't like that. We prefer the home to be more seen. We understand. We took them off our plans. They were also, their feeling is if we put a full-size field, it will create an encroachment and submit the application to Historic Sites Council. Bigger fields affect the ambience of the historic house. Their words, not mine. And they made it very clear it's all about the house. We discussed things like a playground. They had no negative comment or positive comment. The only thing is they requested with a playground that we use muted colors like a greens and browns instead of, say, hot pink or orange. They do make playgrounds of those kind of color schemes, so I think we'll be able to address that satisfactorily. We mentioned the need for restroom with weather protection. Again, where we situate it on the property, that'll decide whether it's an issue for them or not.
Why would bathrooms be, they don't want them near the house? Is that there would be an issue?
Yeah, this drawing, Concept 20, shows the restrooms and the weather shelter immediately north of the house. We'd have to review that with them to see if they had an objection to that location.
Okay.
The other thing is, any grading we do for fields would have to be overseen by the historic archaeologist. We understand that. They'll be part of any contract that is prepared for this project. And I think...
Did you talk about tree removal at all with them?
We talked about tree removal. That tree removal was not so much a concern for them. They consider this property had been previously agricultural. So if it was an open field for agriculture, there wouldn't be any trees. The trees that have grown up on the property, mostly from the last 30, 50 years, when the agricultural use on the site became much less. We asked about how they felt if we put a community garden on the property. They felt that would be well-keeping with the historic nature of the site, having been once agriculture. We asked, what are their thoughts on pickleball? They said, thumbs down. That would, if we wanted to put a pickleball site, that would probably trigger a Historic Sites Council review.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of the three conceptual drawings that you have, you would have an encroachment with the field side, an encroachment with turf if that was decided, an encroachment with lighting if that was decided. And I know that one of the plans, well, the plan that was rejected by SHPO, I thought one of the reasons, or maybe it wasn't a plan that was rejected, it was just a conversation that you had with them. They did not want parking by the house, like behind the house, correct? A large parking area behind the house.
That's, I believe that is correct. That's why we had shown in some of our earlier plans a smaller parking lot, 7 spaces, 2 for disabled parking.
Right.
The intent of that parking was also to provide an ability to service the building. Should the building be used for an event, that's where a delivery truck can park to offload right up the ADA accessible ramp into the house with any food or anything else for the catering kitchen that is under construction.
Right.
That lot, in the earlier drawings, we even were proposing using a dark brown paving stone rather than just asphalt.
Right.
Once we walked the site with them and showed them where that was, they were more understanding of what we proposed. This on Concept 20 with the parking lot there, that might be a tough sell with them. We may have to modify that. But we wanted to show with the features we were asked to put on this drawing where we would have parking. So you see on 20, you see parking right behind the house. And then the last drawing, 22B.
Can you tell me where they're labeled?
What's that?
Can you tell me where they're labeled? I don't.
It's in the title block in the lower right-hand corner of the drawing, It would be, like the first one says Concept 20. The next one would be Concept
I see
21B.
23030.
No, that's the project number. It's in the title block.
Can we see it?
Right there, at the bottom,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Left side.
Anybody?
Yeah, left side.
Right there.
I see them.
No, right there. See Concept 20.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Okay. All right.
Took you a while
So, concept 20, concept 21B.
And Concept 22B, each one shows, well, they show different orientation for a softball field.
Right.
22B and 21B show a parking area in the northeast corner of the property.
Right. So with all of these, there are encroachments. That is going to put us to the, what was it called?
Historic Sites
Historic
Council.
Sites Council?
After our meeting on Thursday, yes.
Okay. So, I mean, to me, how, did you talk at all about Historic Sites Council?
Yes, we did. Usually if we submit a complete application to SHPO and they can review it at the administrative level, their turnaround time is usually within 30 days or so. If we have to go to Historic Sites Council, they have 120 days to review it. We were told it is well advised for you to have additional professional help in presenting to Historic Sites Council, either archaeologists or others that are more versed in applying to the Historic Sites Council.
Okay.
It's kind of like a land use board. It is a land use board, excuse
Right.
me. And like there are land use boards in the village, applicants oftentimes retain professionals, planners, engineers, architects to assist in the presentation of the project.
So in your opinion, the plan that you brought to the council in December of 2022, just 3 months ago, that you had been working on kind of with conversations with SHPO, and after meeting with them, do you feel that that plan would go through without going to the Historic Sites Council?
I think that plan has a good chance. That's the one that I signed and sealed at the end of November. I believe that plan has a good chance. There may be some changes that they would say, we recommend you do this to avoid
Right.
an encroachment.
Okay. So.
But again, we didn't wave that one much under their nose.
Right.
We mostly discussed going forward what we can do that they would accept, like I said, at the administrative level, and what would trigger Historic Sites Council.
Okay. So are we talking opinions here tonight?
No, we're going to give
Just
everyone,
asking
we're going to give everyone
questions.
an opportunity to ask questions. So I'm
Okay.
going to move on to Siobhan. Questions?
Sure. I have some questions, too, about the parking, Chris, particularly with the movement on both plans further away from the house. How's that going to affect accessibility for people who are disabled because the ramp's on the back of the house?
That would be on what, 21B, 22B?
21 and
Those
22.
drawings, Jovan didn't have time to put the seven space, parking lot at the west side of the house. We also don't know, we have to figure out what we're going to do for the house, because that would also require an entrance road that we had previously shown, but we're not showing here. The parking lot on 21B and 22B does provide access to the restrooms and storm shelter for a disabled person, but you are correct, it makes it a little more problematic for the house itself. We haven't developed that yet.
So can I ask a question? With the changes, the reference to 2017 to now, the easement of the park has changed now. This will be the third time.
Excuse me?
Are we comfortable? Are we comfortable with the easement so close to Route 17 on 20, concept straight up 20?
Easement?
Sorry, the entranceway into the park for the cars.
Yes, I'm comfortable with that because it's a true intersection. It's not an offset intersection. We do have a divided entrance and exit, That's a signature item from when we designed Habernickel. And we look at Habernickel as kind of a guide to us because it has been a successful park. It took a while, not as long as this one, but it has become a successful park. And we did have an island there. Actually, it was a single road in. We put a second road in, creating an island. Then we removed all the old ratty trees on the island and planted new ones.
Good. Pam?
You mentioned the encroachment. Is there a statute or rule where that is defined? And does it say X number of feet?
They did not give us a footage or a statute on that. I get the feeling from them is it's kind of like the Supreme Court justice once said about pornography. I know it when I see it. They didn't give us. They didn't quote NJSA. They didn't quote NJAC either.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Chris. I can't thank you enough for the weekly sets of drawings that your department, you and I know Jovan.
Jovan's the force behind it.
I understand. I understand completely. And I know that several members of the council were interested in seeing a 40, 60-foot diamond on here. And I think that there may have been a miscommunication. I think what several of us were looking for was a diamond that was self-contained on the multipurpose field, the same way that there is, I've seen them in many places, most closely at Immaculate Heart Academy, right down the road in Washington Township. So I know that's what I want to see, just to see how this thing works, to see how it affects the trees. And so I would ask, personally, I don't know if anyone else has any questions or recommendations in that regard. Do you follow what I'm looking for?
Yeah, that with the full-size field, that's going to get a little tight because the drawings that we gave you this time, we have the field more parallel with Route 17 than with West Saddle River Road. If we bring the fields parallel with West Saddle River Road, we are very, very tight on room. So that's why Jovan put them up there, where we have the fields, we have the usual run out each field needs for the players.
Right.
I can ask them to rotate them down, but I think if I recall correctly, it gets too tight with the proximity to the house, and of course on the northern side, the boundary line.
And I, again, only because I know I've seen it many times. And perhaps if you'd like, we can take a field trip over to IHA. In the way these are set up that I have seen, is that home plate is set up in one corner of the field. And because it's a smaller field for Little League and for softball, the outfield fence that is when they put up an outfield fence, it's a temporary fence, and it's well within the short side of the soccer field. So I've seen it work many times, and that's what I think I know I'd like to see. I know several of us have discussed it, so I'm available to take that ride with you if you'd like.
Okay, I'll talk to Jovan. He should be in tomorrow. We'll see about whether the full-size field fits or not, or how big of a field could fit. Again, parallel with West Saddle River Road. The reason I mentioned it's a softball diamond because it has, if I recall correctly, the softball fields do not have an elevated pitcher's mound as a component of it.
Correct.
They use a portable one.
They actually, a softball does not have a raised pitcher's mound. It's just,
okay, then it's
just a circle.
If it was used for Little League,
exactly. And then that same size field is used for Little League, and they bring out a portable fiberglass pitcher's mound. But it's essentially, it's a multi-purpose field. It's no bigger, it's no smaller. It just has one more purpose included in it. And what is essentially done is the cutouts for all the bases and for the pitching circle are simply a different colored turf. but there's no seam in it that other sports players, lacrosse, soccer, football, would trip over.
Okay, we'll see what we can do.
Good. Like I said, I'm happy to take a ride with you. Any other questions?
I have one question. When you were discussing the second archaeological site, did SHPO say that they would pay for that, or is that burden done to us?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
With the second archaeological site that you were discussing with SHPO, doing more archaeological work, if we
Yeah,
if we
the
excavate-
phase, what
are
they call
pay-
the Phase 1B.
Are they paying for that, or would
Heck
we?
no. We are.
Do we? Do we have any idea how much something like that costs?
I don't know. I am going to reach out to Conley and Hickey, our historic architects. They work very much with Hunter Associates, who has been already on the property and did the Phase 1A study, I believe. So I'm going to ask them for a price.
Okay.
And Chris, is there any reason why this hasn't been done yet?
Pardon?
Is there any reason this hasn't been done yet? I mean, this archaeological thing, again, 14 years.
We did the first study with the house and so forth. The next one is depending on how it developed the field. And that's a decision that's been before you folks on the council and your predecessors.
Good. Thank you very much, Chris.
Okay.
I believe, did you want to make a comment?
I want to ask what the future holds for Shetler. Like, what's the next step?
I think for me, the next step is I'd like to see that drawing before we discuss it further. Certainly, you can always make your comments, but
Okay.
I'm.
So there's no vote next week?
There is currently no vote going to be scheduled for next week.
Well, I'm not going to be here next week.
I do.
So I want to promise that there will not be a vote next week.
In fairness, Lorraine, he just said it literally on TV in front of a room full of people. So
He didn't know. He said currently there is no plan for a vote next week. That means it could change. I want a promise that it is not going to be next week.
I haven't seen a drawing, and since we haven't seen a drawing that we can vote on, and since we really need to discuss it at a work session first,
Okay.
then I can't see how we're going to do it.
Okay.
How's that?
I'll accept that.
Thank you.
With that said, I do want to keep this moving forward.
Yes, we definitely want to move this
I was hoping
quickly.
that we would be able to get to some sort of resolution tonight. I'm disappointed that we're not. We need to get this resolved. We absolutely need to get this resolved. And Chris, I do very much appreciate how attentive your people have been. They've been great. And it sounds like we won't have any action on it next week because it's not a work session. But we absolutely need to get this in the following session. We need to get this done.
Chris, just one last question.
Sure.
So with all of these extra drawings that we keep asking you for, is there a lot of overtime being incurred in the engineering
Not
department?
anymore.
What?
Not anymore.
Oh, because
Heather said,
we have no
"That's
money
it."
in the budget.
Heather made that very clear and said, that's it, no overtime. So we have to fit it in with our regular scheduled work.
Okay. So other things are going to get put
Jovan
aside.
was out yesterday, Jovan was snow plowing, so he certainly couldn't do any CAD work. Today, he took a deserved day off. Tomorrow, I'll ask him to see if he can get to work on this. We also have a couple other projects. He is working on the West Glen sidewalk, which we hope to present some ideas to the council in the coming weeks.
Okay. I thought we took that out of the budget too.
I know, I was told that by Heather. However, we want to show you the plans and what the price tag is, so you may be aware for funding it in the future.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Chris, thank you so much, and please thank Jovan for us.
I will. Thank you.
Okay,
Well,
we'll move
Paul,
on
could we,
to...
before we move on, could I just make a couple comments?
Sure.
So, a couple comments. First, I wanted to thank everybody for being here, and I just want to go over some basic points that the 2017 plan has been referenced, but clearly there's been material changes with the easement to the park and a whole bunch of other elements. The other thing I want to make clear is that the 2017 field was turf. So when we're having this discussion, I'm seeing people saying this and that back and forth, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with that. The second thing is that one of the callers referenced a somewhat important email that I'm hoping we can all get a copy of, if we can. And two, I want to make sure that, for me, with all the easements, I think we can go back. we're seriously encumbered by the state here. And I just think as we're exploring this, we need to recognize that this is our largest capital project, and it's $7 million. And I, too, want to move this forward in a thoughtful way for a lot of reasons. But when I met with the neighbors, there's a lot of questions before my time, and I think we need to focus on doing what's right for the neighbors and doing what's right for the sports groups. And if that means there's going to be a variance, that's what it's going to have to be. I also want to say that the house is largely undiscussed. It's sort of bizarre to me that we have a house that we've invested $2.3 million of capital, and when we're discussing the park proposal, in traffic, we're not actually saying what's going in the house. So I was hoping that we could add that into the discussion as well. I mean, that's a serious amount of money for the town, and when people were talking about what makes this park special, the number one answer, I think people would say, the house makes it special, and yet it's never part of the dialogue. So it needs to be part of the dialogue as we go forward, because the field will generate traffic, the walking path will generate traffic, but the house will generate traffic as well. So that's all I wanted to say. I did want to say thank you to everybody who reached out. I find the conversation, it depends on what time my phone rings. If I get somebody from the neighborhood and the historic side, it's this way, and if I get someone from the sports community, it goes the other way. And I really am thankful for all the conversations that have remained polite and respectful. And if anybody had any concept for the house, I think that for me, being new to the council, is a big question as to what we're going to put in there.
Thanks, Siobhan. And we're going to move on. The next matter is Ridgewood Water.
Yes, so I'll have Mr. Calby come up, Bush Calby, who's director of Ridgewood Water. So we'll start with the first one. What you had originally as A1 is actually A4. You have a revised A1 in front of you. So this is a proposal from Hunter Research to provide professional services to Ridgewood Water for cultural resource surveys for the PFAS treatment facilities proposed at Ames, Cedar Hill, and Wharton Dyke. The surveys have been requested by NJDEP as part of the environmental review for the iBank project funding program. So this is the same group that does the archaeological survey for the Shetler property. It must be done before construction begins, because if something is found, it can be resolved, and then construction can be done. Therefore, the recommendation is to award a professional services agreement with Hunter Research, Inc. of Trenton, New Jersey, not to exceed $20,460, and the money comes from the Ridgewood Water capital budget.
Good evening, Rich.
Good evening. How are you?
I think we're okay.
Good.
So are there any questions about what I just said?
Questions on the first matter?
No. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
So I read through here, and it is a $3.9 million project. And then I noticed somewhere that, am I correct, where it says that we are getting $2.8 million back from the EPA?
Sure. Are we on? I don't know if we're on that item yet, Mayor.
I'm so sorry. 9A1?
That's coming up.
I said that you have a new 9A1 in front of you.
There's a
9A1
revision.
is 9A4.
But you are correct.
Okay. Okay. I'll be fine. So which one? That is now 9A2.
Move on?
No.
Can we move on?
This is now 9A4. Got it. Thank you. I'm just trying to keep
Can
up
we
here.
move on?
Yes, please.
Okay, so 982 is also a professional services award for the 2023 distribution improvements. This is from Suburban Consulting Engineers of, just trying to look, and they will do Ridgewood Water 2023 distribution improvements with locations in Glen Rock, Ridgewood, and Wyckoff. They are from Flanders, New Jersey. It's not to exceed $88,170. The funding is through the Ridgewood Water capital budget. And these are priorities and include critical transmission water mains having undesirable materials or capacity issues, and distribution water mains having water quality, reliability, or capacity issues, some of which beyond the useful life. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Questions, anyone?
Yes.
In the first bullet point, it says utility right-of-way, Ridgewood, upsizing of approximately 1,950 feet of 12-inch cast iron critical undersized transmission main, along with installing 1,750 feet of 12-inch raw water main for future centralization of treatment. But that's the same size as the one.
Excuse me, Chuck, we have to leave the door open. Thank you. If you just mentioned to them to keep it down a little bit, appreciate it.
So I thought you were upsizing, but the existing pipe is 12 inches, and you're installing a 12-inch pipe.
Two separate pipes. Currently today, the 12-inch pipe exists by itself. That's going to be upsized to a 20-inch pipe, similar to the other pipe that we're currently lining as part of a project you approved earlier on. And then we're taking the opportunity, since we're going to be in the right-of-way, to install a second pipe, 12 inches in diameter, to serve one of the satellite wells that are going to go to one of the PFAS treatment plants.
I get it. Thank you.
Other questions? Everyone good?
Okay. The next one is 983, which is award professional services contract. Mont McDonald would provide professional engineering services to Ridgewood Water for the bid and construction phase for Ames, Cedar Hill, Prospect, and Wharton Dyke facilities. They are from Isla, New Jersey. It's not to exceed $1,946,000. So they were, Mont McDonald was contracted for the final design of the PFAS treatment facilities at Wharton Dyke, Prospect, and Cedar Hill and Ames. The final design phase didn't include the services required for project bidding, construction, administration, and inspection, and they're all being funded through the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank. They require full-time construction inspection, and so they would include this service.
Questions? All good?
Well, I was a little flabbergasted at the price, but then when I dug down a little deeper, I saw how much in the way of services they're providing. It's not just the bidding or the construction, but it's also the administration, inspection, getting all the permits. So they are doing a lot for this $1,946,000.
It's a $42 million project that they're overseeing, and the entire contract is time and materials. So it's not a lump sum. They only get paid for the hours they work.
When's the first shovel going in the ground? I'm excited.
We're hoping to go out to bid on the first project, Prospect. It says here March, but it's probably likely April.
That's great.
Okay.
Everybody good?
Now we're at 9A4, which was one. So this is for the 6 bids were received for the PFAS treatment facility at Ravine. Mont McDonald recommends the contract award to the low responsible bidder, PAC 2 of Ringgoes, New Jersey, not to exceed $3,943,000. Mont McDonald is the engineer of record for the project, and they prepared the construction documents and reviewed all bids. The funding for this is in the water capital budget.
And now I will ask that question. Are we getting $2.8 million back from the EPA?
Yes, we received a $3.5 million grant from the EPA, but it has a $700,000 match from the village, so you're correct, $2.8 million cash money will come from the federal government to help fund this project.
What a nice surprise.
Yes.
I think, isn't that the one that you and Mayor Knudsen worked on? And we
Long time in the waiting. Took us a bunch of work to get through EPA to get to this point, because it's actually the first funded grant program that U.S. EPA has handled in probably decades. So they finally got around to figuring it out.
We owe a great debt of thanks to you and Mayor Knudsen.
No, this is exciting. This will be the third of the 12 plants that we're building.
Is that money in the budget, or what happens with that money now?
There was money in the budget already for the project.
I mean, the money we're getting back.
We will get back the full 2.8.
Right, but I'm saying, how does that affect the budget? Is that now a net gain?
So that will reduce the debt payment. Okay. So out of that amount that's been funded, we won't have to go out for bonds on that. Gotcha. $2.8 million.
But it's strictly the water department. It's not like we can use that
and
for the village municipal budget.
It's their capital budget.
It'll help our liquidity, though. We had the whole conversation in the budget about, the utility being liquid, not liquid, based on the amount of debt that we're now, holding. So the more we could get that down, the better.
Gotcha. Helpful. Thank you.
In the resolution and in your memo, you say a contract in the amount of $3,943,000, but usually I see the words "not to exceed" in a resolution, and here you don't use that terminology. Why?
For construction contracts, I'll have to check if we use that terminology.
If it's time and materials, you usually use not to exceed.
Yeah,
this is
there's a lump sum bid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which we had some very good competition on. It was good to see.
Other questions or issues? No? Rich, I want to thank you and Susan for working to secure that bid, that grant, because that's a big deal for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is authorizing a change order for professional engineering services for transmission and distribution improvements. In 2020, Ridgewood Water accepted proposals for professional services for this project. 2 professional engineering consulting proposals were received. Suburban Consulting Engineers was awarded the professional engineering services contract for a price of $194,765, and that was awarded in November of 2020. At this time, an additional amount of $2,061 is required to complete work beyond the original professional engineering services scope. The change order is basically needed due to delays with PSE&G and NJDEP permitting and the cost of reproduction of bidding plans and specs due to unforeseen Phase 2, because it was phased when they planned it out.
Questions? Everybody good?
Okay, the next one is authorizing a change order for professional engineering services for Ames, Cedar Hill, Wharton Dyke, and Prospect PFAS water treatment facility designs in July of 2021. Ridgewood Water accepted proposals for professional services. It was awarded to Mont McDonald for $1,598,000. At this time, an additional $194,477 is required to complete work beyond the original professional engineering services contract scope. This change order is needed due to design rework for architectural and site design for Ames and Cedar Hill and Wyckoff, and IBank funding need 4 separate bid packages, 1 for each site. Originally, it was to be 1 bid package and also additional permit requirements.
Questions? All good?
Okay. The next one is awarding a sole source contract. The lead and copper rule from New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection mandates Ridgewood Water maintain a corrosion control program. This allows there to be a lining, thin coating on the inside of plumbing materials, so it prevents the corrosion of lead and copper into the water. Ridgewood Water utilizes polyorthophosphate to control corrosion. This is manufactured by ESC Environmental of Glenville, New York. In fact, we've used it, and the last round of lead sample was actually non-detect. He's recommending a sole source contract to ESC Environmental of Glenville, New York, in the amount of $185,000 for 2023. The funds are in the water utility operating budget.
Questions?
Yes. It looks like there's now a new fee for, I just read it. I just answered my own question.
Excellent. Next.
Okay, the next one is revised water rates and PFAS treatment surcharge. So every year, Mr. Calby goes to Howard Woods, who is a water rate expert, and he reviews the budget and the volume charge and the PFAS charge fee schedule. So they have been reviewed by Mr. Woods, and we've used it for several years. So every year, the water utility budget is developed and evaluated against anticipated revenues, and so a 3% rate increase is proposed for this year. This increase will help sustain the revenue for 2023, and the new volume rate proposed is $5.69 per 1,000 gallons. As far as the PFAS treatment charge, this is to meet the funding demand for operations, maintenance, and debt requirements for the investment to filter PFAS from the drinking water. Ridgewood Water is proposing to continue with the PFAS treatment charge. This is year 3 for this charge, and the PFAS budget is $562,810. So the charge is made by meter size as a fixed fee. The majority have a 5/8 by 3/4 inch, I believe, and that is $14.12 per quarter. And this will start on the 3rd and 4th quarter bills for 2023. And so this is basically between the new rates and the PFAS charge. It's $42.52 annual increase for the residential customer using 7,000 gallons per month. 66% of the increase is attributed to the PFAS surcharge.
So I have a question, Rich. If this is a 3% across the board increase, then how does it result in a 6.8% annual increase for the residential customer?
So the 3% is only on the volume rate. The PFAS surcharge is also being raised.
So the PFAS surcharge increase is over and above the 3%. It's not included in the 3%.
Correct.
Great. Thank you very much.
And Rich, the surcharge, does that remain dedicated or does it just go back into general?
I believe Mr. Rooney's tracking that separately.
Okay.
You know, and every year that's recalculated on the basis of what's being spent, anticipation of any grants, the EPA grants, best example, and hopefully in the future, positive recovery from either insurance or legal cases.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we move on to parking, increasing parking rates in the parking lots. So right now it's $1.25 on the streets and it's $1 in the lots. Sergeant Chuck was here a few weeks ago. He indicated it really wasn't an incentive for people to park in the lots to pay a quarter less per hour. He doesn't see that shift. So as you know, we're trying to redo our kiosks so that there are more kiosks and that you can park in more places in certain areas. So in order to do so, we have to have the same rates. So therefore, we're trying to do a pilot program on Chestnut Street and Chestnut Lot. And so to do so and also to move forward, if this is successful, is to charge $1.25 in all of the lots so we can rework the kiosk system.
Questions?
Are we adding kiosks?
We are adding kiosks.
For the pilot program?
For the Chestnut, yes, we
and
are.
Where will they be?
I don't know. I will have to find out.
Oh.
And I know that when the higher rates were proposed and utilized on the street, as opposed and cheaper rates in the parking lots, the idea was to make it a premium parking to encourage people to go into the lots. As we've all seen, it's become more confusing, and so this is our attempt to make everything more uniform. So I support this completely.
Just as, do we know, I mean, basically we're going to be saying if you park on the street, it's $1.50, but going forward?
No, $1.25.
It's all going to be $1.25.
Oh, it's $1.25. Okay.
And so what's going to happen is, with this
Everywhere.
proposal, is you can pay at the same kiosk, the same rate, and it's the same zone for both Chestnut Street and the Chestnut Street line, because there was confusion.
I got you. Okay.
And so this way we have less confusion. You're going to try it out here, and if it works well, then we will expand it to the rest of the town.
Gotcha. Okay.
I am kind of curious to know whether if the street rate were higher, whether that would drive people into the parking lots, but I don't think there's an appetite for increasing the parking rates on the street.
And then we couldn't do this thing with the lots, having the kiosks for the lots in the street, because they wouldn't be the same.
And
So,
for this pilot, are we also putting in some meters in the Chestnut Street lot?
The ones for the pedestrian plaza, those 3 that we were requested?
Yeah, we did talk
We're
about
looking at doing that, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So I was going to say the same thing as Pam, and I think this is the first of several steps to streamline parking. You know, over and over we hear, It is confusing, and we've heard now from the police that the enforcement is incredibly difficult because of the proliferation of zones. It's disappointing to me that the lower rate wasn't attractive to people to get them in there. I can't figure out if it wasn't attractive or it was just confusing. And I also, with the pedestrian plaza coming, the 15-minute meters, we'll obviously have extra poles now. If we want to put them in the Chestnut lot, that would be great.
Okay. So yes, we'll move forward?
Yes, and I think you characterize it well. This is a step-by-step process. There are several steps after this, and this is the first one. We'll see how that works and proceed from there. All good?
So the next item is related in that it provides a resolution for being able to do that pilot program for 90 days to see if it works, and if it does, then we can move on to others as well. Okay?
Questions? Everybody good?
Okay, the next item is a shared service agreement for municipal court. In 2019, we signed up with Glen Rock for a shared services program where they provide us their municipal court administrator. We provide deputy court administrators, and the cost at the time was $50,000. The increase is based on a performance evaluation of the municipal court administrator, and this year, after the 3 years, it's now $53,000 and some. I forget what it was, but what I want to say is this has worked very well. It's really a shared service between Glen Rock, Ridgewood, and Wyckoff. Both municipalities still have their own judges. Both municipalities do court in their own venues. And in addition, we always have the court administrator at our court, as well as Glen Rock has it at their court. They're on different days, and Wyckoff as well. And the administrative office of the courts has encouraged these shared services agreements between municipal courts, and we were actually on the forefront of that 3 years ago. So I'm happy that it's worked very well. I know our municipal court administrator is, the judge thinks very highly of her. She's very organized. The deputy court administrators are also very good. And there's usually at least one deputy here and then one deputy in Glen Rock. And then we also have one clerical person in our court here who mostly stays in Ridgewood, but if need be, could go to Glen Rock if need be. So I highly recommend that we renew this agreement for another 3-year period at the same, under the same circumstances that we had before.
Good. Everybody good?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
The next item is awarding a contract for automated external defibrillator. This is from Fire Chief John Judge, and he got quotes for these. This purchase is part of a 4-year capital funding project to replace all of the AEDs in the village, to include police, fire, EMS, as well as public access, such as our village buildings. A lot of them have AEDs. The lowest bid was from Second Chance Cardiac Solutions out of Yorkville, Illinois, not to exceed $23,984, and this money is available in the capital account.
Everybody good? Oh. Sorry, no, go ahead.
How many AEDs do we have?
Offhand, I don't know. We can find out. This is for 16, though.
This is for 16?
Yes.
Are the 16 that will be replaced, are they working? What do we do with the working ones?
I think these are to replace. I think it's a rotation. So in other words, they last a certain period of time, and then we rotate in and out. But I will double check and get that information.
Anybody else? Good?
Okay,
Next.
the next one is for awarding a contract for materials and supplies for new signage due to meter pole removal project. So we are taking out the previously used meter poles in the central business district that do not have the meter heads on them. This is due to the parking kiosks. These poles had directional signs on them directing people to where the kiosks were located. So we need now to print new signs for the kiosks. They're going to be very big. We showed them a couple weeks ago. And this way people should be able to see the kiosks wherever they park and look for those signs. So we need to buy materials, supplies for the new signs. We went out for quotes. One didn't respond. One said he wasn't interested. And so the one quote we did receive was from Garden State Highway Products of Millville, New Jersey. The quote was for $42,320. This is one of our usual suppliers of traffic signs and related items. And this is funded from the Parking Authority operating budget.
So, did we get those bids in 2020?
No.
Because I'm looking at the resolution.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
All right. Hold on. I think you just got them. Oh.
First paragraph.
Uh-huh. I don't know, Mr. Ruthershauser, did we get those bids in 2020, or was it 2022? Because it says August 19th, 2020. Yeah, because it says it was received in August 19th, 2020. Okay. We'll check that.
Could be a typo.
Yeah, it could, definitely. I'll let you know.
So Heather, this is just for materials. We're still making the signs in-house?
Yes.
Okay.
Materials and supplies. So it's the metal thing, it's the reflective tape, it's the ink, all that stuff.
Thanks.
Thank you. That was my question.
It also says that we're required to use breakaway channel post installations. What is that?
Come on up. Come on up. Thank you. I'm assuming if someone hits it, that it'll break away and not stay still, but I'll have him answer.
Breakaway posts have a shear section on the bottom, so that, as Heather said, if it is hit by a vehicle, it breaks off and doesn't create an impalement hazard.
Okay.
You'll see that in a lot of signs. Not all of them have them. Some just have a channel post, but the breakaways are better, so if a vehicle hits it, it shears and doesn't become a further hazard.
Thank you.
Chris, could I ask one more detailed question? So with the new zones, are the signs going to be zone specific?
I believe in working with the police department, we're going to try to eliminate so many zones.
Okay.
Because that has caused confusion. I see that every Thursday when I'm in municipal court. There's a lot of summonses to people who thought they paid in the correct zone, but inadvertently went to a different zone, and hence the parking enforcement officer issued them a ticket.
So my only question would be, before we print them, is there a way we could get a proof and we could have people on CBDAC and in town look at them to make sure they're less confusing? You know, I know that
It's more important that it's not confusing to the judge. So that's, no, seriously, because when they come before the judge, he needs to be okay with it. And I think that Sergeant Chuck is probably a good gauge for that because he's in court every week. And so that would be my recommendation. And we did show you the signs. They're pretty basic.
Yeah,
you know?
I think the only remaining questions, there were 37 current zones, and I know the police were looking to change them with the streets crossing over. So I just wanted to make sure that because it's a big investment, that we're all on the same page of how many zones we're going for.
Our goal with the signs is to only produce a product that His Honor is satisfied will meet the standard of the law.
Correct.
So that it can be applied to anybody that requests a trial or argues a ticket.
Dylan, do you have the sign? Is that what you have back there? So these are the signs, just as a reminder. So the one says pay by plate, that's the one that goes near the kiosk. The other one is pay by plate, and it gives you the zones. And that's the size it's going to be, so.
I love them. I think they're great. I think from the general public, we continue to hear that you park in 4301 and you pay in 4302, which goes to the zone thing. So
But the zone, the point is that it's going to be easier because of the way it's laid out with those zones. So I can give you that whole description again if you want, so you can reread it. But it was very clear, like the mayor said, for Chestnut, both the lot and the street are going to be one zone. So whether, if you walk out of Chestnut Lot and forget to pay the kiosk, you can pay the kiosk on Chestnut Street. So it's going to be much more intuitive than, trying to figure it out, I think. I mean, there may still be people who get confused, but I think this is going to be a lot more clear to people.
I definitely think it's going to be more clear. I just think the more that we can publicly present this, when we change things in parking, and someone else, please help me
Well,
out.
maybe
we
we
get a
could
lot of
do-
feedback. We get a
Oh.
lot of feedback
Oh.
consistently. I mean, I've gotten, probably as many parking emails as I have gotten on Shetler, to be honest, about enforcing.
More,
And
if you can believe that.
I get it that the judge is the final decider, but there'll be less judge visits if we actually send it to the public so they can see it.
Speaking of which, that was my question. Are we really asking the judge to give us an opinion?
No,
He
we
can't.
can't.
I thought that, yeah, that's exactly my point.
That would be,
We
he
cannot
would
do
make
that.
it very clear that we cannot ask his opinion.
Yeah, so why are we, what is his role in this? Because there really probably shouldn't be any.
There isn't. What I'm saying is Sergeant Chuck should know pretty much how the judge ruled based
Okay,
on his many
that's-
years of experience.
all right, we're good.
So
I'm
Sergeant
good.
Chuck is the one who worked with Signal for the wording on this.
Right.
I think that, maybe once they're up, we could do a video.
Totally.
And this way, that would be great, and we could put that on the website, and then people could see, this is what it is, this is what we've changed. So, if they watch it on the website, they're going to know better. I'm concerned about having public input only because it's very simple and straightforward, I think, right now, and I don't want to get too wordy or too confusing.
And I think your points are both well taken, that once we do this, it is our responsibility to get the word out
Correct.
to the residents so that they can appreciate the change and understand it. Because, look, I've been doing this for almost 30 years in the Central Business District, and this is just the latest council that has made a change. It happens every 2 years or so. So, we're going to try and simplify it, and part of that is getting the word out. So this is one of the many steps that we need to take.
Right. So the next one is authorizing budget reserve transfers. This is the annual resolution which transfers money from the 2022 budget from departments that have money to departments that don't have enough money to pay their 2022 bills. So that's that. The next one is dining corrals and pedestrian plaza. So these are going to run simultaneously, is my understanding, and we're going to begin May 20th. That's the actual date. We said around May 15th, but May 20th is the weekend, and end September 17th, which is a Sunday. And then we'll do a resolution for both of them together, running concurrently. And then what we'll also do is evaluate it in September to see if we want to extend it to maybe October, maybe November 1st or something. So, but that's when we'll review it. We'll see how it's going. We'll see how it's working, and then move forward from there.
And this is what we discussed at our first meeting of the year. Everyone good with this? These are the actual dates.
Okay, great. The next one is painting of a mural in the train station pedestrian tunnel. I know that there's been a whole group that has worked on this, and Councilmember Perrin Deputy Mayor Perrin is going to present this, and we do have it up on the screens as well. So,
I'm just waiting for the clicker.
I was wondering what this meant.
So in these pictures, you'll see some of the artwork that is already existing in Ridgewood, and they are on hardy board. If you don't know where they are, go looking for them because they're really pretty. And those are the four across the top. And on the bottom, you'll see the barriers that came in for the dining corrals was a community project to paint them and make them more decorative, and it was a whole lot of fun. This issue came up in the Central Business District Advisory Committee as to the really poor state of the pedestrian tunnel underneath the train tracks. When we held Oktoberfest, people were going back and forth underneath the tunnel to be on both sides of the town, and although it's a really important connection between the two sides of town, it's very unattractive at the moment. And we worked with Chris Rudishauser and Rossi Paints on Chestnut Street, which graciously has decided to donate paint and supplies, which our Department of Public Works could paint. And, well, actually, the Department of Public Works would prep the walls, and they would, and then we would have artists design the mural, and the public, say students from AP classes and other artists in the community, would paint the design that was chosen and approved by the council. For fundraising, in order to pay the muralist who designs it, we're working with the Ridgewood Arts Foundation, and that's a 501c3 organization. We are going to need consent from the State Historic Preservation Office, and we've been in contact with them. They've been very helpful. So we don't have that approval yet. We have an application drafted, and we hope it will go out soon to SHPO. The tunnel was last painted in about 2012, and at that time there was a mural that had been up for 20 years, and that was painted over. It is right now, many of you may have been down there, the paint is peeling, bubbling, cracking, and there's rust staining. The lights also need to be refurbished a little bit. A lot of cleaning has to happen. And as part of the fundraising campaign, we would be using leaves. The idea is that people could purchase the leaves with their names on it, and that those would be in some location in the tunnel or in the ramps. Our initial thought for the design is to use the theme of trees, since that is so present right now for us in terms of planting more trees. It's in our master plan, and we could follow the seasons. There are 5 entrances and exits to the tunnel, 2 ramps, 3 stairwells, and that would give the artists some play in terms of in the entrances and exits, following the seasons and maybe some general nature kind of thing. And those are some examples. Those are a little small. But it would be nice to feature Ridgewood's tree canopy and have a colorful depiction of the changing seasons. We sent out a request for proposal in the beginning of February. We've had 30 artists respond. So that's pretty encouraging. We're looking for, they are going to do full mock-ups and proposals, and the final date for their submissions has been extended to today. Here's one we received. And you can see the tree theme. There's a vine going through, and that's one of the downward ramps. Here's another. These are trees standing. This is actually some kind of paper mache, and it's 3-dimensional. And you'll see here in this one that the ceiling is being decorated as well. Here's another possibility. And this is an existing mural. I'm not sure where it's from, but I love it. It's just so colorful. The benefits of including this in our historic tunnel is that the local mural inside the entrances of the pedestrian tunnel will attract visitors to our community, bring shoppers and diners to our central business district, and boost our economy. That's the basic idea. Studies have also shown that public art is linked to crime reduction. So this is just a conceptual presentation. It's the beginning, and in order to send out the application to SHPO, we would like to have the council's approval. And if we could vote next week, that would be great. So that's the thought. We're hoping to raise about $50,000 in order to pay for this. It'd be great if we could do it in the warm season this year, and I'll take any questions that you might have.
So what are you going to do to try and raise money? What thoughts are there?
That's what the leaves are for. They're these
Oh,
metal
is that the
engraved
only-
leaves. If they were, say,
That's the only way.
$100 per leaf,
Mhm.
yeah, and say, we're not quite sure where in the tunnel it would go. Dylan, can you put up the map? I just drew this up. It is far from scale. You'll see in the central hallway there are 10 ad posters on each side. We have sold the space to Intersection Media, and since about 2017, they have put the posters up, and they pay us an average, I calculated, of about $11,000 per year. And
total, or total?
Total.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's
And the initial, what you see there in blue, those are for nonprofits. And the ones in green, Heather tells me, are the most valuable to the advertisers. Those are the ones we would have liked to remove because the vantage point, as you're walking into the ramps, are better without the posters there.
Right.
However, if necessary, we could work around it. And then there are the stairwells. The stairwells are steeper, and so they would probably necessitate a different kind of treatment. SHPO also suggested that we might not want to paint directly on the walls because they suggest you might want it to be more reversible than that. And so we're considering the hardy board again, because then you can just put up panels and take them down if necessary. And we've worked pretty closely with Rossi Paint, and they're telling us that there is a final coat that you can put over it so that if there is vandalism, if there is spray paint or whatever, it can be washed off. And the contract has expired with Intersection Media, is my understanding, and so Heather, in negotiating the new contract, would be looking to see where we could put the mural, and we'll work around that. And so the concept is a bit fluid, as you can see, but it will really make a big difference down there.
Are the posters in the green area, are they the same company?
Yes, they're all the same
They're
company.
all.
They are, in fact, the posters repeat.
Okay. But those are more, if they pay $11,000 a year, maybe the green ones are, $7,000 and the others are $4,000.
It's actually a percentage. They give Ridgewood 60% of the advertising revenues that they get. So it's not per poster that they're paying us. And there are 2 or 4 more in the train station area. And although they look all different sizes in my drawing, they are all the same size.
I mean, I don't know, for $11,000, I just think it would be so beautiful if it was all murals, not to throw away money, but it would be beautiful if it was all murals.
What's anybody else think?
And I think that at the end of the day, we're going to see what proposal comes in. And I think that that's a question that we're going to determine later. See if we can do this with the posters or without the posters? And in answer to your questions, the green posters are clearly the ones that are more valuable, that are the ones that would take the lion's share of that $11,000. So I think we'll figure that as we go along. I have a question for you, Pam. So we haven't decided on a mural design.
Correct.
And will that come to the council for a decision, or will that go to some other committee?
We are, the jury is a mix of artists and residents. So
got it.
I think it's about 6 people.
But I think we should bring the finalists to the council
for sure.
the final
Oh,
decision.
for sure.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And in this regard, you want to apply to SHPO before we determine the final design, correct? Is that what you were saying, or did I misunderstand?
I think once we approve the concept,
Right.
if then we would apply to SHPO.
And we would determine the design later?
Yes.
And SHPO would not be interested in the design?
I think Chris might have
Why don't you come
more
up?
experience on that.
I think they probably will care.
Are you familiar with SHPO at all, Chris?
Yeah, SHPO's an acronym I'm getting to know too well. I've had some initial conversations with the State Historic Preservation Office regarding this project. They did mention what the Deputy Mayor mentioned, consideration of a film for anything you want, or anything you put on the walls. Either it's got to be easy to paint over or peel off. So the hardy planks, okay, good idea. The key is going to be how they're going to be affixed to the wall. I have to present that to them and see that they find it acceptable. Obviously, we have a precedence in the frames for the advertising that is attached to the walls. So, you know, SHPO can't say you can't put anything in when we can point to what's already been done.
Okay, so is it prudent to apply before we decide on a final design?
I think we can start the conversation with them, or I already have. I'd like to submit them something, particularly with regard to how we're going to fix them. Let them decide. I can say, you know, working with Jeannie Johnson and Deputy Mayor, if we can include some samples of the type of artwork being considered so they have an idea. We can also suggest to them that they may have, you know, once the village selects an artist and what the artist would prepare, we can forward that to SHPO.
So this would be an initial application that you think would likely be updated once we determine a final design?
Yes, and this is for project authorization. There's nothing in this project yet that suggests to me we're going to go to Historic Sites Council like another project we discussed earlier.
Got it. And in terms of the Hardy Board, I think this is a terrific project. I mean, I love this project. The tunnel could use some spiffying up, clearly.
It's well over 100 years old.
It's and I think, you know, just looking at some of these designs, and if there are 30 applications for this, I think that this is a great thing. I want to thank you. I want to thank Jeannie Johnson, Matt Rossi, for really picking up the torch on this. In terms of the Hardy Board, is that really something that's necessary? Couldn't we just paint on the walls? I know that this is a decision that's going to come down the road, but what's the problem with just painting on the walls? I mean, the Hardy Board is a huge step, and it's a big expense.
If I recall from my email discussion with SHPO, anything we paint on the walls, I believe they would want it to be something that could easily be painted over, so that the current appearance could be restored quite quickly.
And couldn't we just do that on the walls by whitewashing it later? You know, if we put a design up and then for whatever reason we decide to we don't like it, we want to change it, we whitewash it. It seems to me the Hardy Board, unless I'm missing something, is an unnecessary step.
The hardy board could be, but it does, using the hardy board sets the artwork off the wall slightly. It's also a good surface for the artwork to be affixed to. The walls in the tunnel themselves, there are areas of efflorescence. You can see that where the existing paint bubbles up. It'd be a shame if somebody created a beautiful piece of artwork only to find out over a year or so that the underlying moisture bubbles to the surface, ruining it.
Okay.
I mean,
Thank you.
again, that's something that can be considered by the artist and can be considered by this group proposing this project. If the artist is comfortable applying it to the wall, knowing full well that the efflorescence in the concrete may bubble up over time, marring their work, and they can be satisfied, not satisfied, comfortable with that, we'll go with that route.
Fine. A question for another day then. Thank you. Other questions?
Can you tell from just looking behind the posters as much as possible how they are affixed?
I have to go take a look.
Okay.
I haven't done that.
Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to say it's awesome, and I love the idea of public art for all the obvious reasons, but I do want to say that in other cities where there's public art, the artist sometimes prefers that it be separate so they can donate it and it can be removed after the installation or donate it for charity. And I also, for a long time, the art, like the paint down there bubbles because of the humidity as a factor. So I know it's an extra step, but there is the idea that the artist could then donate or move their art elsewhere if it's on a board, which is nice.
Like the mural on Alexander's?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next thing.
Okay.
And that is No Mow May.
And yours as well.
It is everything that Frank Mortimer said in public comment. And this is the signage that we will be using. The idea is to increase habitat for pollinators and wildlife, to cut down on pollution from mowing, and making yards safer for kids and pets, and reducing the amount of chemicals, pesticides, herbicides that we often use on our lawns, to promote sustainable landscapes for healthier neighborhoods, create a safe environment for learning and observation, like, ooh, there's a larvae, or larva, well, whatever it is, and showing solidarity that you care about the environment and our village. It's only for 1 month, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The parks, there are 10 parks in town that are going to be participating in this. In addition to what the residents do, it will be portions of the parks, not the entire parks, that will be unmown for the month of May. I don't think the decision has been made yet about which particular areas, but that'll be fun to see also. And this, of course, helps us keep our title of Bee City, USA. And so does anybody have any questions about it?
I do.
Yes?
Are there other towns doing No Mow May? Or is this a uniquely Ridgewood project?
Oh, no, it's national.
That's what I want.
Yeah, yeah, and this is their national sign. So this is what you'll see on people's lawns. A little smaller than this is what's going to be in the parks, but whoever participates has to register so that we know who's who and why they're not mowing their lawn.
Do we have any idea, and I'm all for this, but I'm just curious, do we have any idea how many communities are engaging in this?
I don't know.
Just wondering.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I just want to say May is a month where the grass grows crazy. I am worried it is going to really look bad. It's going to attract bugs. I don't know. Not that I'm against it, but I don't think it's going to be attractive. Let's put it that way.
Well, if you're looking for butterflies or bees or clover in bloom, it'll be attractive.
And if it doesn't work, we don't do it again.
Yeah, people can choose not to.
I know that when I see a lawn that's very high and has clover all over, et cetera, it's not my favorite place to look at.
I love that this is a controversial topic.
Just be careful. Maybe we don't lined up next week.
I'm telling you. And look, I happen to agree with Lorraine on this. However, I know that the bee, look, I know very little about this, but I know the bee population has decreased dramatically. Our local resident beekeeper, Frank Mortimer, suggests that this is something that will help that bee population, which is important to the entire eco chain. So let's give it a shot.
Okay. The next one is community read. Councilmember Winograd had asked for this to be on.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I had attended a CRAN event, and we had all been separately approached by a resident, Lynn Benson, to join into the 3rd annual community read. So this year we could not sponsor it because we missed the timing due to the placement, but for next year they're trying to be more organized. So this is so everybody can see more about the program, and the goal is to have each of the municipalities join on. Our library has picked this up, even though we as a council didn't endorse it, just simply due to a timing issue. Glen Rock is doing it, the mayor in Glen Rock is endorsing it, but they had more ample notice before this. So this is the book that they're reading this year, How the Word is Passed. It's to promote community conversation, particularly around the issue of DEI. I think next year we should be on board with it. They were, both Rabbi Ron and Lynn were very helpful. We got them in touch with the library. We do have local people communicating and fostering these discussions, but next year they are looking for an official council endorsement. So
Just like a proclamation or
yeah, and an actual endorsement that they can use with the author and in promoting their event. They have multiple events hosted by multiple different organizations.
I did it a few years ago, and it was really fun, even on Zoom.
Does that come out normally in January or December? Do you know?
So they were doing a little bit of self-reflection about this year, and I think so many new members of council showed up this year that they all struggled to get it on the agenda. By the time they had contacted us, with the work session and the discussion, we had been placed out of the actual paper endorsement, which is why they went to the library. So they're going to start earlier next year in October.
Oh, October, great.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay.
Great.
The next one is the protocol for written comments. So basically, there have been 2 times recently where council members have read written comments from others into the record. And, at this point, we have hybrid meetings. You can have public comments in person. You have it by phone or being online through Zoom. So really, there's ample opportunity. And, many times residents or others send emails to the council to express their views to them. It doesn't mean it needs to be read or has to be read. So if you wish to allow written comments, I would just ask that we follow the protocol that we use for Zoom, and this is a discussion whether or not you want to allow them, which was that the written comments had to be in 4 p.m. the day before the meeting, sent to the deputy village clerk, stating these were comments for the village council meeting, and then those written comments were then read by either the deputy village clerk or the village clerk at the meeting. If it was longer than 3 minutes, it was read at the end of the meeting. But I wanted to say that at times it was uncomfortable because there were criticisms of some council members, and then the deputy or the clerk had to read those comments into the record, which obviously weren't hers, but were the writers, and that was clear. But so I think the council should decide first, do you want written comments, or if you do, then I think we should follow that protocol if you're in favor. If you don't, then I think we need to make that clear.
I'll jump in first. Our recipe for public comments has changed dramatically. Now, anyone can pick up a cell phone from anywhere in the world and get in our queue and make public comments. We didn't have this before. I think that is truly the best way for us to hear from our residents. Any letters that are submitted by residents are still included in the packets of all the council members. So we get everyone's thoughts. But in terms of listening to people, We are already extending our public comment section so that it goes beyond 40 minutes. And I'm personally satisfied if we don't read them publicly. And obviously we can't pick and choose. And so I think that this is a better way of going forth, and something that, we've said we want to try and make our meetings more prime time, more 7:30 to 11. And initially when I proposed that, I remember thinking, well, because it gets late, we don't think as clearly. But I remember Evan said very clearly that, you can see how the room clears out. After 11 o'clock, a lot of people are in bed. We know this. To keep our meetings more efficient and yet as open as we can possibly make them. So those are my thoughts.
And just add also, we've had a council chat as well. And actually, I think you and I, Paul, have a date on Saturday morning to meet whomever comes by.
And let's not call it a date.
Well, you know what I meant. But also, we all get letters sent to our official email addresses. We all read them. When physical ones are sent to us, I know we get them as part of the packets. I agree. I don't think we should be in a position where council members, including myself, kind of cherry pick which ones we like, which ones we don't like, which means then you'd have to read all of them. I think that would be a bit unwieldy, especially given how much we've done to increase access for the public to be heard. I think, to the extent people want to send things in, I might entertain potentially making something available a part of the official record if there's such a thing. But I agree that I don't think we should be soliciting and reading them into the record, because I think we would be here very, very late at night, given the number of letters and emails we already get.
Other thoughts?
Another thing that we did during the shutdown, when we were reading the emails here in open, well, not here, but on Zoom in open session, was that when there were duplicates of opinions, the clerk was burdened with deciding which were the duplicates and cutting them down, splicing them, and when our clerks are so busy with Oprah requests, I would not want to add to their work.
So, I feel bad. Lorraine and I had a sidebar. She read one letter and I read another, and then we actually had a side conversation of should we have a policy, and we both felt like no, but here we are having one. I feel, and I'm sure Lorraine she read hers in the initial public comment. I feel that because we'd had a wait line, I read mine in final, which was unlimited. I do agree it's a burden on the clerk, and I do think to remain neutral, it probably would be better to have the clerk read it. I think writing is a wonderful way of communicating. I wish I could say I didn't, but I do. And so I do think that if we, depending on where we end up, if we do allow written comments, they should be at the end, because I feel like that's fairer to the people who showed up earlier. And I do think to neutralize it, we should probably send it to the clerk if we're at all considering it.
Yeah, no, I don't think we should consider reading written comments. The one I read was, very unusual. The person was in Europe. It was, sleepy time for them when we were reading. So I don't think that's going to happen too often. I think if it did happen, they could find a friend at home to read it. I don't think we or the village clerk should be burdened with that. So I don't think we should be reading anybody's comments any longer.
I think we have a consensus.
Oh, that's great. Now keep in mind, we could always paraphrase. I've received several letters indicating X, but I think we're only Oh, I'm sorry. I said we could always paraphrase. We've received several letters advocating X as part of our comments, but I agree. I'm not going to mess with consensus. I think we were all in agreement here.
Good.
I'm glad we had this conversation, though.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks. The next one is establishing the Pride Day Committee. So this is going to be a committee that's appointed by the council like our other committees. I basically need to know what you want for number of members and the length of their term, if it's going to be an official village committee.
So that's the question I have. Unless my memory serves me incorrectly, I thought last year many people came and spoke, and they did not want it to be a village committee. They wanted to do it on their own. So, you know, what changed?
And that's what you're absolutely right. And several of us went into a meeting with people who were advocating for Pride Day. Mm-hmm. And when we discussed and I had the same exact comment that you did, but when we discussed the cost of police officers and whatever other cost the village incurred would be passed along to them, they opted for it to be a village committee so that they would not have any costs.
Okay, but last year that was brought up to them, and they said, "Oh, no problem. We'll do fundraising. We got the money. We want to do it."
And I was telling them everything that you're saying, everything, and this was what they requested, and that's why it's before us today. But you are absolutely right, and I thought we were okay. It's your committee. You guys got this, and we're all set. And when I mentioned to them that they had to pay for the cost of a couple of police officers.
But they knew that. I mean,
they didn't fully appreciate that at the time.
So
this is where we are now.
So the question is, I assume it's not in the budget because we had decided last year that there would not be a village pride committee. Is that correct?
Well, anything that's run by the village, obviously, then the police work it as part of their
No, I
detail.
understand, but what I'm saying is in the budget that we're looking at right now.
There's nothing allocated for Pride Day, no.
Right. So how much money are we talking about?
I don't know.
And
we don't have committee members yet. So, that's part of the issue, too. We have people who are interested in serving, but we don't have a committee yet.
I think the question, taking it from the beginning, I was at the meeting, and I think the question for us is, do we want to, we've had a Pride Committee in the past, do we want to have another one? Because citizens came to us and asked us to establish it. I personally think we should have a committee because we were asked to do that. And then I think we could come up with the terms of who's on the committee and which one of us is the liaison. So that's what I think. I mean, beyond all the costs and everything, I think that citizens asked us to assemble a Pride Committee after the discussion last year. I'm in favor of assembling one, and I think we just need to decide the composition of who's going to be on it and what it entails and put that forth on a resolution, and then see who in the public wants to be on the committee.
I think the cost is the most important, especially after the last couple budget meetings. I mean, I have no idea what we're talking about.
And here, I'm gonna take a swing at this because I believe at the last couple of Pride Days, there were 1 or 2 police officers for a 4-hour shift, and each of those police officers, the cost is about $500 per police officer. So you're talking $500 or $1,000, depending upon what they expect the crowd to be, which is, again, I've been to these before, and it was 70, 80 people. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm sure there's a couple of other nominal costs, whether it's cleanup or things of that nature, but you're talking about a relatively small and nominal amount of money. Not that $1,000 isn't real money, but it's right. not $10,000, $15,000. But I think that's what we're talking about.
I thought it would be much more.
Heather, am I off base?
No, it's pretty accurate. I mean, the other thing, the cost would be like our signal division person to come in for the sound.
Right.
To bring chairs if we have some chairs. I mean, I would guess under 2,000. If even that, maybe under 1,500. So approximately.
There was also the discussion of some fundraising to supplement, for the Pride Mobile, and the residents that came forth felt like they could add value with things like that. And I know that the kids at the high school were also interested in attending and promoting the Trevor Project and selling things that they've done, like they've done for the past 5 or 6 years.
Okay, so what's the decision?
Does anybody have any objection to this?
I don't, as long as the costs are accurate that we discussed.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're going, and Heather confirmed confirm that, so.
Okay, so what I need to know is how many members do you want, and what is the length of their term, and which one of you wants to be the council liaison?
I think my smallest committee has 6 residents on it, so that they, in a 3-year term, they can cycle and stagger.
Same thing.
I think we need for voting, in case we always need an odd number. So it has 6.
Oh, yeah,
so
right.
we need an odd number for
7?
the committee. So the number that was proposed from them was 5, and they were thinking a 1-year term. But
Yeah,
we
you can have people overlap though from
Right,
year to year.
right.
So I'm wondering if we do 5 people and perhaps, we do maybe a 2 or 3 year term. I'm just trying to think this through, but somebody who'd be first appointed would get a smaller term so that we'd always have somebody from last year on.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So
So
perhaps
let's-
half of them as, or 2 of them as 1-year terms, and 3 of them as 2-year terms? Does that sound like it works?
Do you think that's enough people, though?
I do. I think that's more than enough. I think that, the program there's been a lot of interest from people involved in both years and previous years. I think there's a lot of overlap, so I think 5 would be fine.
Because don't you want, I would assume there's going to be at least 2 kids from the high school that will want to be on
So we
it.
talked about that in the meeting, that there would be liaisons, and I think we did the GSA, the saga. Heather, didn't we detail that out, that there would be, the chief of police would be on there? There would be other additional members that weren't appointed by the council.
Okay.
So it was Ali Mendez, and we contacted the high school to see who the role was. And then one of the most important things is while we're having the meeting, and they wrote us a thank you note, because we were very clear that even though this was the meeting, there was no guarantees whoever was in the meeting was on the committee. And I would be more than willing to be the liaison, but I didn't want to say I would be it, because I didn't want, if one of you wants to be it, then anybody can have it.
Is everybody good with that?
I think so. I'd suggest, in terms of the terms, I would say if we do 5, everybody gets a 2-year term, but 2 people would get 1 year first time out.
For the first time.
Yeah, so right, exactly.
They'll be staggered. So
Yeah,
they'll be
I'll leave it
staggered.
to you
Yes.
to write it, but yes.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to do it.
That's fine.
Good. I think we're
Okay,
good on
so
this.
then we'll do that at next
Great.
week's meeting to establish it, and then we can advertise for them, and then, you can decide how you want to choose the members once we get the applications. So the next item is the tree trust fund. Pretty easy. We need to do a resolution to set up the trust fund. This will be for any of the trees that are removed that people don't want to replace, that they have to pay towards, future trees being planted. It would also be if people just in general decide that they want to contribute towards trees, planting trees, then that would also go into the tree trust fund. So that's basically so that it's used for planting more trees.
Does anybody have a problem with that?
No, the money could only be used for planting trees.
Right, that's what it would be used for.
Great.
So I do want to say, just because I promised my Shade Tree Commission I would, this is really awesome that everyone's willing to change this and put it there. They're very grateful for the additional money. And just so no one's shocked, they did feel that there was some room for improvement in amending elements of the ordinance regarding enforcement. Right now, this money went into the general fund, which seems silly because it should have been earmarked for trees, and now it's going to move there. But they did, when people say they're self-planting, they want to talk about that and do some things. So they're very active, very mobile, and obviously with the budget, they're very concerned. So this is additional money for them. And when I go back to them, they say, Siobhan, you have to press this, you have to press this. So they're going to be looking for alternate sources of revenue to promote trees at every level. And I think reviewing the ordinance is what's up next. So I just want to give everybody a heads up on that.
Heather, in the spreadsheet that I saw of the trees that we got permits for, there were none of the $500 figures of people who were cutting down trees and giving money to the village. It was only people who were cutting down trees and saying they were going to replant on their own properties.
Right.
Could you make sure that there are maps coming in with permits for the replanting of trees? Because that makes enforcement easier after the fact.
Well, do you need a permit when you're replanting a tree?
No.
If you're cutting it down.
Only
Right. So I'm saying how will, I have always worried about how enforcement would be. You know, I cut down 5 trees because I'm adding an addition or whatever, and I say, yeah, I'm going to replant them someplace else on my property. Who checks on that?
Well, this is one of the things that's probably not, for the sake of time, they have very strong opinions on that, and that was a gap. So when we went into this, the current gap was that the penalty money, which some was collected, wasn't earmarked for trees, and that this resolution will make that whole. And then we want to look at the next phase of, you know, with the enforcement side of it, and how can we do that? How can we work with zoning and planning more effectively to make sure that a self-planted tree is planted? They have some ideas. They are ready to advocate and get going.
No, I think it's important because I can't imagine how they do enforce that, and I'm sure there's tons of people that say, oh yeah, I'm replanting.
Right.
Or I did replant and it died.
Yeah. Who's going to catch me?
All good? Great. We will now return to public comment, and I want to say thank you for all the people who stayed, and we are going to go, this is the order that I saw: Joan, Bob, Linda, Lori, Ann. Joan. And thank you all for your patience.
So I've never done this before, but I'm looking to get council.
Joan, if you could speak into the mic.
Okay, sorry. So I've never done this before, but I'm looking to get council approval for.
You just need your name and address.
Oh, sorry. Joan Monton, 340 Corona Place. Trying to do the veterans banners, and I've met with most of you. So I've gotten a quote from Gates, which was a good suggestion, to do the flags. And if I put it out to the public and I get a list to him and the pictures by March 31st, that gives me a 2-week period for stragglers. We can have them done and back here to Signal by May 15th, where they can be put on the poles. What we discussed was to have them up for Memorial Day. Other towns, like every town, keeps them up through Veterans Day. I would like that, but I'm trying to get my foot in the door, and it seemed like I got a little bit of pushback on that, and maybe we would just leave them up through July 4th and see how it goes the first year. I do have a list just from the Legion alone and some other people who kind of got word. I have at least 100 that would want to be on the banners. We had discussed how this could really escalate up to maybe 400, and we said we need to cap it at this meeting that we had, and we had all kind of agreed. I'm just looking to reaffirm that 250 would be a good number to settle that at. I'm really just looking for approval that I can go ahead with this with a cap of 250. The veterans themselves or their families pay for the banners, and they would be up again from Memorial Day until after the 4th of July. The only other thing I need to look into is the brackets. The village has a lot of brackets. I think, and I don't know where I'm getting this number from, but I think it was kicked around maybe 100. And if we have to buy 150, I'll talk to Rich Charlton down at Signal, then we would incorporate that into the cost when they order the banners up front, so everything would be covered. The money would go through the Legion. People would have the order forms that would be returned to me, and then I would bring them collectively to Gates. Gates would give us a bill. I would collect the money. It would go through the treasurer at the Legion, and it wouldn't involve the village at all, funding-wise. And the Signal is okay with putting up the banners and taking them down. And I just need you to say okay, because I'd have to get the word out now to get everything back by March 31st to have them on the polls this year, which we're hoping to do.
This is a no-brainer. Heather, can we vote on this somehow or get something for maybe next, I know it's a work session.
Yeah, we can't vote, but if there's a consensus, then we're fine, I think. I don't think we need an official resolution.
No, I don't think we'll need a resolution for this.
So I just want to make sure everyone's okay with it, and then we can move forward.
I love it. The only question I have, I wish Chris was still here, because you want to put these banners on the PSE&G poles?
Not initially. So we were talking about in the business district, somebody had counted, you had a list, and I want to say there was 100, that's down Ridgewood Avenue, Broad, and then the other side of the train tracks. When you're at the curb, they hang this way, so they don't hang into the roadway. Mm-hmm. That's where I think we have American flags and other stuff, baskets, or I don't even know.
And Chris was at that meeting, so
yes,
he addressed the issues of hanging them on the
And
poles.
before he left, he did say that he had on his list of things to do was to contact PSE&G. He doesn't foresee a problem, but you just have to formally ask them that if this grows, which we hope that it would, that it could be down Maple Avenue, and I think Broad Street going down, I forget. But right now, I think they feel that they're comfortable with, we all kind of, and Chris was there at that meeting, Rich Charlton was there at that meeting, 250 would be a safe number to say, let's cap it at that and hope for that and see where it goes. I just have to figure out brackets, and then we'll cover the cost of it. And then the interesting thing is, typically, talking to Gates Flag, the town pays for the brackets because it becomes your property and they hang other things on it. I would love for the town to pay for the brackets that we're short, but I'm trying not to ask for too much, and I want to just get rolling with this because I'm already behind. So
I think it sounds like we have consensus that you should work with Chris, and we're all super supportive as long as it's done in a legal fashion. Again, this is a no-brainer. Of course we should do this.
Yes.
It sounds like you've got, I suspect my colleagues are going to, we're all going to talk over each other in a second because this is such a great idea. But work with Chris, just do it in a way that's legally permissible, and I can't wait to see these up.
Okay, so the next step is just to verify or confirm the cap's going to be 250. They'll be on the polls hopefully Memorial Day through July 4th. It'll go through the Legion as far as money. I'll figure out the bracket cost and we'll cover it because I don't want to ask the village to do that if it's not in the budget and all that. And then I just need you to say okay.
Heather, if I'm not mistaken, Chris said the 250 was a good number?
Yes, he said that, and Rich did too, actually.
Yeah. So I have the okay.
So
We're all set.
It looks like you unanimously in favor of this.
Yeah. It's going to be wonderful. It really is beautiful. I'm surprised
it's a
Richard doesn't
wonderful
have it.
project.
I'm excited
And
about
thank
it.
you all for doing this. It's going to be a great project.
Thank you for,
We're
it
all
was worth
excited.
waiting then.
Great.
Joan, too, if you,
Yes.
when you're ready with your social media, let us know and we can help
That
with
was
that
was
too.
on my list too.
And
So tomorrow I'm going to be talking, assuming I have the approval, I'll be talking to Gates Flag. They'll put together an order form, and then if you can post it on the village that people are interested, it's going to be first come first serve. I'll have the exact cost because I have to figure in the brackets, and then the deadline would be March 31st.
Okay. And then, Heather, the only thing that right above the flagpoles, we should probably, so the Alumni Association had gone with the flagpole approach, so we went back to a letter that Heather wrote in 2020, which, we haven't added any new posts. So we should probably all have that, particularly for the people who are on Pride, and because there may be other people who are inspired to do these for something else, and it's going to look awesome. It's just
Okay,
gonna
and
look
then the
awesome.
other thing too is most towns do a dedication ceremony where we can get there, where it's in Van Ness, I guess it would be for Veterans Day, but they won't be up for veterans, so I don't know, Memorial Day or probably not July 4th, it's just too crazy. But something, where people, they read the names, basically the families accept the banners and then they're handed back and then they're put up.
Well, there is a Memorial Day service that the Legion sponsors, so maybe it could be done at
Okay,
that.
that's perfect. So, that'd be great.
Great.
Yeah. And I personally will clean and collect the flags when they're off season and then make sure they're good to go back, that they don't look, ragged or anything like that. It is the higher quality vinyl. Right now, the price is, that they quoted me, was $80 a banner, but the brackets have to come into play because we can't burden the village with that. So the brackets for one banner, he quoted me, was $80. So he's trying to get the number down on the price of the banner so it can be, I was hoping it was going to be under 100 for everything, but it might be more like 150. But you're not paying for it, so and I think that'll help.
And I just want to say, this is an exception to our public comment policy. It's not usually a dialogue. It will not be a dialogue. We're trying to accommodate you in
Yes,
this
'cause of
one
this
instance so that
deadline.
you can get the go-ahead and get started and get rolling.
I appreciate that. I do understand.
My pleasure.
And it's because that dumb deadline. So thank you so much. I'll be in touch.
Terrific. Thank you so
John.
much.
Thank you.
The next person online from before was Linda Koch. So, Linda, come on down. Followed by Lori and Ann.
Good evening. Linda Koch, 60 North Hillside Place. North Hillside Place. A lot of folks listening, knowing people and listening to the folks speaking before me. A lot of folks grew up here and stayed here and raised a family here. And our daughters and all our children received excellent educations, made lifelong friends, and who knows, maybe they'll stay here and pass along the value of being a good citizen. How wonderful to listen to the youngest, earlier in the evening, to the youngest citizens speak so eloquently and so earnestly about the value of play and about the value of being a team player. And I see, to that point, I see the Shetler Park project as a wonderful teaching opportunity. I love that there was this ad hoc community coalition of bringing together of varied interest groups, varied points of views, and after 2 difficult years of battling it out, back and forth, a plan was agreed upon in the spirit of give and take. All got some, and none got all. And I trust that with this council, wisdom and foresight will indeed prevail, and this council will be remembered for fair play. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. Lori?
Good evening. Lori Weber, 235 South Irving Street. At the February 22nd meeting, Mr. Vagianos insisted that the council had a long-standing policy of not allowing members of the public to utter the names of council members. He claimed that the policy promoted respectful dialogue, yet he did not actually identify this policy, which, as it turns out, violates the public's lawful rights of expression. My comment at that meeting was cut off immediately at the mere mention of Ms. Winograd's name. Even when I asked to finish my sentence, I was argued with and warned not to speak her name, even when referring to something that she had said or done. Ironically, just 2 days later, at the February 24th budget meeting, Mr. Vagianos allowed Ms. Winograd to scold the village manager, Heather Maylander, for the better part of several minutes. Apparently, Ms. Maylander hadn't informed the village council of her meeting with the state employees because it was for village staff only. Ms. Winograd claimed that as a private citizen, she had expressed her desire to meet one of the state employees that had come that day. She expected Ms. Maylander to remember and act on that. It's all in the meeting footage. How is that appropriate or respectful? Ms. Winograd has stated repeatedly that she recuses herself from discussions of Ms. Maylander, yet at a budget meeting, she drew attention away from the budget to express disdain for the village manager. On February 22nd, I told this council that as the result of Ms. Winograd and One Village, One Vote, the village has an ordinance on its books that conflicts with state law and is therefore null and void. Ordinance 3048 usurps the Board of Education's statutory authority over its own elections per the Title 19 statutes. The date of the school elections cannot be established by ordinance because the Board of Education cannot create, amend, or rescind an ordinance. The public's statutory right to petition the Board of Education has also been removed by this. Ordinance 3048 also conflicts with a prior court order that set the dates of Board of Education trustee elections through the year 2022, specifically in November. One Village, One Vote's actions to move the elections to November without addressing that court order resulted in the loss of our annual Board of Education trustee elections. Now, Mr. Vagianos may think it's disrespectful to point this out, but I think it's disrespectful for the council to ignore such a serious issue. Respect is earned, and it's reciprocated. Instead of demanding it, endeavor to be worthy of it. As far as the budget meeting goes, Mr. White's brought up an interesting point regarding the possibility of charging fees for Open Public Records Act requests. And I just want to address that. The public's rights to access public information are protected by law. The law is not aimed at discouraging transparency. Mr. White was saying that if we charged fees, people wouldn't ask for so much. But that's not what the Oprah law is for. We fund the government. The notion of imposing fees in order to discourage our interest in how our government conducts our business is kind of outrageous. Imagine not being able to access public information unless you can afford it. That, to me, sounds like elitism. And just so you understand, an overly broad OPA request can be denied. If more time is needed, it can be requested. And as far as small businesses asking for tax records to create mailing lists, they should be sent to the village tax lookup. They can go, they can take a map and they can go street by street and they can record all that information for themselves. The village should not be burdened with providing them with that kind of support when it's something that is already on the public, already out there for them to take right off the internet. I again reiterate my concern over obliterating the village manager portion of Ms. Maylander's job. She does an excellent job and she is a bargain. And when I hear the chief of police's requests for hires being curtailed, I cringe a little when I think about the council creating a new salaried position with benefits. And I appreciate that you have a budget to conform to, but every little piece counts. And I'd say, if it's not broken, why fix it? Why throw money at it?
Thank you so much, Lori.
I didn't realize there was a time limit on me.
Oh, yeah, there was.
Oh, can I tell you something about the Hardy Board, because I've had experience with that?
Actually, you've already gone over the time
Oh,
limit.
I didn't realize that I was on a clock. Okay.
You didn't hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think once everybody gets to speak, you could speak again.
Oh,
Sure.
the other stuff was just like about the Hardy Board and stuff, but okay.
Thank you. Actually, Ann was next, but good.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't realize that. Jacqueline Hone, 30 Carriage Lane. After seeing those, the new Shetler plans, and then having the mayor say that Chris maybe didn't understand what was being asked of him, I think is another example of why we need an expert to design this plan with all the concerns of the neighborhood, the health impacts, the traffic. He also made mention that there was, they didn't want obstruction of the views, so I don't really understand how a field of that size, it's already been stated that it would require 60 feet of netting around the field so that the balls wouldn't fly into the neighborhood or outside of the field area, and that would clearly be an obstruction. It would be very, I don't understand. He also went on record and said that the 2017 plan, and I'm going to continue to say it, it is approved at the municipal level. That was approved, that was adopted, there's a resolution on record. The village engineer again said today that that was most likely go through without a hiccup. I've also heard tonight that it appears the state is putting the brakes on this whole project because of the historical component of the parcel. So I just wanted to share. First, I'd like to say that I feel that's a little bit insensitive to the citizens that truly believe in American history and the fact that this is a Revolutionary War site. I wouldn't refer to the state protecting and responsibly being stewards of public lands and American history as something that is impeding to other residents. So the parcel itself, the historic elements of this property is very unique because we have a house in the front part of the parcel that has a historic element in and of itself, and then there's a parcel that is also historical, dating back to the Revolutionary War. Deputy Mayor Pam Perrin, a long time ago, forwarded to me a sword that was found, a picture of a sword that was found on that site. A sword dating back to 1747 that was part of the Revolutionary War, and there's attached to that a bunch of documents of where this lieutenant is describing he's part of a British side, and he's coming up the West Saddle River Road. So there is a lot of history in that land. So I was very happy to hear that the engineer said we have to proceed. SHPO would require us to now do the B part of the archaeological assessment and move on to an actual survey. I think that's a wonderful opportunity for us to continue to responsibly preserve that parcel of land. We also have a robust, we heard from some children, baseball primarily, and I do know and I do recall that there's also a robust Boy Scout community, and we haven't heard from that side of the community or other types of active recreation. And so the same way that we had a committee prior, an ad hoc committee, I hear a lot of what do we do, the concept for the house. If the council is open to a committee formed of residents, the same way committees are being formed for other things, where we can all come together and find a really good use for that house and part of the historic preservation of the parcel itself. I think the house would be a great place to store and exhibit of all the artifacts that we currently have and could possibly have in the future. It would also be a great place to, independent of the artifacts, is to also have a walk-through history of what happened on that parcel. There are numerous letters dating back to that chapter, and it's also a great way to kick off, like a previous speaker said, America 250. We're very short years away from that, and that would be an amazing place to also store maybe some of those banners on exhibit on the off-season when they're not in the center of town, and a way for the Legion to also have a space.
Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you.
Rorick Holiday, 1 Franklin Avenue. I have 4 documents related to Shetler with me, which I'm going to pass on to Heather as part of the record. Connolly and Hickey applied to register the house in May 2019. I'd like to know who authorized the filing of this application, and was the application approved by the Village Council? Then the village manager's report back October 3rd, 2018, estimates the reconstruction of the Shetler house at $785,000. If I read Bob Rooney's work properly, this has gone up to $2.3 million. $785,000 to $2.3 million in 3 years. That is not something that you would explain with inflation. I'd like to know why. Now, in a letter, before I come across as being a vandal of some sort, in a letter to the Ridgewood News, November 2019, I called for the Shetler property to be linked by a footbridge to the Paramus Church, and for the combined sections to be named the Ridgewood Historic Park. I see the history in the Shetler property. Yes, I'm a big believer in historic preservation and in respecting our historic heritage. But I'm dead set against registering the Shetler House with the fact we have registered it, or in fact the fact that now it's extended to the property itself. It was a big mistake, and for two reasons. First, the house is not worth it. I'm sorry, the house is not worth it. And the registration has handcuffed us to SHPO, encumbered us, restricted our freedom, and wasted taxpayers a lot of money. 2 weeks, to be candid about it, I went into the house. For the record, there was no sign saying no trespassing, and I also obtained permission from the 3 men working there. My reaction to studying the house inside and out is $2.3 million for what? I just don't see it. And believe me, I love history. I love history. I love respecting history. Now, in my letter to the Shetler, to the Rigid News, I mentioned Haven's house on Shelter Island. Truly the gold bar on how to restore a historic property. In this case, a house built in 1743, a real house. I spoke to the executive director this afternoon, and she mentioned how the restoration cost over $6 million, and that all the money came from private donations. Not a penny came from public funds. I asked why, and their answer was their fear of losing their freedom, which is what we have done with SHPO. As I said at the last meeting, get going on a full-sized turf field and buy the adjoining property for parking. I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity. The fact that the property may have had some history on it, and I'm sure it has, does not mean it cannot have a full-size playing field. Frankly, George Washington, looking down at all the deliberation, and if he ever walked across the Shetler property, would be happy to know that the land is being used to keep Americans happy and healthy. Okay? Now, a couple more comments I'd like to make. I don't know if I understood Lorraine Reynolds properly, but something about she was somehow uncomfortable with No Mow May because there'll be lots of bugs, which I think it's the whole idea behind No Mow May. Did I misunderstand you? If I have, I apologize. But believe me, the whole idea of No Mow May is to encourage the bugs to come out. That's the whole idea behind it. Lastly, I do want to congratulate the four of you, since you've taken over this village council, for the wonderful tone in attracting everybody to come and say their thing, from one end of the spectrum to the other. And to really put things in perspective, let me read a quote from the September 8, 2022 patch. Now, you allowed other people a few more seconds. Let me do that too. Where, while updates and information on the house and property have been light and almost non-existent, I think we were avoiding interference. Mayor Susan Knudsen said at the meeting, I think in fairness that has worked out quite well. Your openness versus the opaqueness of what happened before.
Thank you, Rurik.
I'll give this to
Robert Koch, 60 North Hillside Place. It says 3 minutes there. It doesn't count
It's,
down.
the clock isn't running. You have 5 minutes, and Heather is keeping a timer. So you can't keep track of it.
It's about pacing my cadence and everything. I can't really, because I have it. So, yeah, so next time I expect to see 5 there so I can pace my cadence.
We're working on a better clock.
I just wanted to let you know that Linda and I have canceled all our content, HBO, Netflix, Amazon Video, and all we do now is binge city council meetings. And a word of the wise, when you binge city council meetings on a desktop, you can go 2x, meaning people speak twice as fast, or sometimes 0.25, depending if you want to get the information correct. So I'm not going to name names of who gets 2X and who gets, but so anyway, but what I realized is we inadvertently got on a budget meeting, and I said, wait a second. And like the entire council was here on Thursday, Friday, and I just want to say that I really applaud you and your noble effort to do all this work, because I can't imagine you're getting paid that much. And this is how democracies truly work. And I was reminded of that quote from Teddy Roosevelt. I'm just going to paraphrase it. It's not the critic who counts, although I think criticism really does count. The credit belongs to the person who is actually in the arena. You're in the arena, and I applaud you for doing that. So now I want to talk about Shetler. And you guys kicked up a hornet's nest, and I don't even know why. And it was really good to look at we did a quick study. I really appreciated Warwick's papers that he submitted. You can see him on, his other testimony. I can go back and see what he said, what other people said. And I think you really got to go with what happened in 2017 and what the city passed, because that was a compromise of everybody. And when you look at what some people said, a gentleman from the great neighborhood of Kingsbridge Lane, at February 1 at 7:58, he didn't threaten. He guaranteed if you do something bigger, it's not going to happen right away. And Councilman White was kind enough to come visit all of us, and his primary thing is getting this thing going and taking action. So if you try to do something overboard and veer from what the compromise is, the guarantee is you're going to have problems, and one way or another it's going to get delayed. You're going to have encroachment accusations from SHPO. You're going to have somebody hiring a lawyer, putting in an injunction, and all these things that nobody wants to do because they already did them before is going to happen. So that's my one point. The second point is there was another gentleman from the great neighborhood of John Street, and I had to slow him down because I had to get it right. And you know what? I was typing it and the phone rang at work. I don't know, but he said something like, I'm also willing to team up with other organizations to make substantial gifts to offset some of the development costs. So, different states are different in pay to play, but I'm not sure how to interpret that. But what I will say is if he's going to do that, and that's the basis which you make the decision, as a member of the Friends of Shetler property, I am willing to make a super substantial gift that's 10x whatever this gentleman's gift is. So then I said, well, wait a second, is this even proper? And luckily, with the website, apparently there are rules, but you can gift anything you want. So for me, it's like, okay, the issue really here is this how you're going to make your decision? Who gets up here and struts their stuff and says, I'm going to pony up money? I'm just trying to understand what the basis of your decision is. And so I got two quick points. If you look at the utility of that property, and I had to do these numbers quickly. I can fine-tune it. But basically, you get, I think it was like 14 hours of utility per day out of this property. It's 105 hours per week times 52 is 5,468 hours per year. Of that, the fields can only be used 33% of the time. So you really have to consider what happens to this space the other 67% of the time. And that's where I think the neighbors get very upset that I can't use this neighborhood anymore because it's useless. So anyway, just like Warwick said, had a quote, I just want one more quote to guide you in your political life, in your career, and if I can find it quickly, it's going to be a good one. So it's a quote from Martin Luther King. Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor politic nor popular, but one must take it because it's right. And I implore you to do what's right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. Ann Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I have a couple of comments on different subjects. One is Councilwoman Winograd constantly or regularly mentions that Shetler is the biggest expense we have at $7 million, and yet there's a $42 million water project that's being discussed. So, no, it's not the largest. It's large, but it's not the largest. Another comment has to do with committees. Previous speaker, Jackie Hone, suggested that a committee could be formed to work with replanning for Shetler. We had discussion, you had discussion about a Pride Committee. The Pride Committee is only going to have 5 members. It should be an odd number, and how they're going to join, and this one's 1 year and that one's 2 years. The Communications Committee has 14 members. 14. That's, first of all, an even number, and secondly, it's huge. And somebody on Facebook specifically asked if they could join. I was told, oh, no. So I think that the way you're doing committees is not equitable at all. As far as Shetler goes, I do not live in the area. I am not a neighborhood member. Many of us who have spoken against the larger field and the AstroTurf are not neighbors. So I don't like that it's constantly the neighbors want this and everybody else wants that, because a number of us are not in the neighborhood. I fully support the smaller grass field, the one that was agreed upon and that a resolution was signed off on. No turf. Don't disturb the historic artifacts. This is what everybody agreed to. It was a compromise for all. On Monday night, I attended one of the meetings with interested parties, and this one was with Councilwoman Winograd. I didn't get to attend the one with Councilman Weitz or with Mayor Vagianos. And a specific question was put to the Councilwoman that said, can you say that you personally have no problem or concern with having a sports field right next to Route 17, even without any environmental impact studies, pollution studies, or concerns about the wells and the water runoff? And the Councilwoman said, and I quote, I don't have any concerns building this next to Route 17. I don't. Now, if I have a little bit of time left, I was asked by somebody who couldn't stay to read something that Salvatore Infantino wrote, and he's in Italy, and I don't even know what time it is in Italy right now. So I'm going to read this because she couldn't stay. This is Dr. Infantino. I understand the need for playing fields, having been a soccer coach in the Ridgewood system for 17 years, and that millions of dollars have been spent to develop the Shetler property. Nevertheless, we cannot jeopardize the health and lives of our most precious possession, our children. The particulate pollution created by the nearby high-speed highway and exercising children in an adjacent field is a lethal combination. The different physiology of children puts them at higher risk for many diseases, with some of them leading to death. All you need to do is Google particulates and children exercising near busy highways, and you will be presented with a plethora of scientific literature warning of the dangers. The only viable solution for Shetler property is to create a passive historical park. Let us not forget that a revolutionary battle was fought there with George Washington being stationed at the nearby Paramus Church. It is incumbent on the Council to get an opinion from an independent medical expert addressing the medical consequences of this proposed field. Council members cannot, in good conscience, form an opinion on this vital issue concerning our children without this information. You need to take your time and inform yourself on this critical decision that will affect the lives and health of our children for decades to come. Salvo Infantino, MD. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ann.
Denise Lima, 319 East Glen Ave. Thank you for all 5 of you and what you do. It's very late, long days. Budget I watched as well. It's just amazing how you get through things. Pam, it seems like you have like the fun stuff on your list, Mo, May, and the train station. So pretty cool. There's some resolution, some ordinance about a fine if your grass grows larger than X amount. So I'm not sure how that's going to be addressed. I didn't hear it, and maybe I missed it. I was probably nodding off. It's very late. I'm excited about it. I think that there's some houses that have bird feeders. There's mice, there's rats that hide in the larger grass. Some people have some problems, but I'm hoping it outweighs it. I like what Evan said is let's try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The train station, love the idea. I've been advocating that for years. Would love to see the school system really being awarded for doing the artwork and making it exciting and motivating for our kids in the schools to be decorating their own stuff on their own turf in their own town. Like, I think it would be exciting for us to advocate for that. So just, my point of view. Shetler, so I'm looking for Shetler still on the facts. Like, why are we doing this? I think a few meetings ago, Siobhan, you said you were going to get some statistics, not just there's 20,000 kids in Ridgewood, but more specifically, what age, when are they going to be there, what's the schedule? Because somebody's doing the scheduling that knows we have an issue, and I still haven't heard that, or the offsetting, what are we going to do with all the youth kids? Like, I'm hearing we could probably do both with some of these, but where are those facts? And then, speaking of the facts, we keep talking about a site plan and the round hole in the square peg in the round hole. But again, when I'm working in the corporate world and there's a change in the requirements, we go through and assess what different risks there are and reevaluate things. I'm not saying taking years. I'm all about agile. But in all of the meetings with the neighbors and everybody keeps asking you, what about the parking? What about the safety? What about this? What about that? And I've never heard or seen anybody address any of those issues in public than to say, here's the site plan. Where is your feedback and comments on how we're going to address parking overflow in the streets? The safety in the town. I'm not saying, again, do a whole new study that's going to take a year, but what is the compromise? We're all about compromising, right? We all want to work together, all 5 of you and 28,000 of us. What is the compromise? I still haven't heard anything. I don't know how we flip from going to hurry up and put Shetler in both of your promises and now kind of backpedaling. I don't understand how a pocket park was once so important at a train station, and now we want to knock down every tree and put up a big field. Like, we're flipping here in town, and I just want us to all be consistent with what we've said and honor what we're trying to implement. And again, I'm just advocating for that. I'm all about history. I'm all about George Washington and all the letters he wrote at Paramus Church when he was here. And clearly he wrote that he had 400 troops. Clearly there was nowhere else to put them except in the cemetery or on the Shetler property. So, but there was not, my understanding is there's no battle that happened at Shetler. Yes, historic and revolutionary people were here, but let me pause. Is there a concern? You smell gas? Yeah, I do too.
Does anyone smell gas
Yeah.
in the room?
I think it's usually the starting of the heat. Yeah. I do.
Usually has a burning smell when heat starts, not a gas.
Let's hold Denise's time
Yeah,
for
yeah.
just a moment.
Is the downstairs in
Heather,
the
is
police
this something
station?
that we generally experience here?
Well, like I said, it has happened in the past, and they determined it was probably the heat going on. But, I mean, we can certainly call PSE&G if you want.
You need fire alarms in here.
Fire department, I could do that.
You know what?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yep.
We're almost done, right? Why don't we just wrap it up
Yep,
and
let's
call the
wrap
fire
this up,
department?
Denise, if you could hurry along. There's one gentleman behind you, so we want to...
My last comment is also just I compliment Siobhan and your feedback about what are we doing with the house. So how much more money are we going to invest? What are we going to do before we start exploring a larger field?
Got it. Thank you very much, Denise. One last comment. We're gonna because of the smell of gas, we're gonna try and get out of here. So that's the only reason, Jackie. So go ahead quickly.
Bill Bond, 335 Kensington Drive. I truly hope to take much less than my 5 minutes. I do want to address a couple of the concerns that a number of residents have brought up. But I'd first like to state I appreciate the care and effort and due diligence all of the council members, even ones who I may not share their same opinion, are taking on this matter. And I truly think we do need to get it right. This has taken a long time to get us here, and I applaud you for revisiting this, because if you review the trail of this whole thing, it's been a travesty. The fact that that building has been made historic, when essentially it's a mortise and tenor building, which is it's interesting, but it's not that unique. The fact that we want to say this is a historic site for George Washington or whoever, there's been battles over every inch of this territory in this town. So you could go to literally anywhere and call it historic, dig up an artifact here or there or whatever you want. I also appreciate the fact that I think most people see through a lot of these things, whether it's a turf study, it's a this, it's that. They're all just stalling mechanisms to try and prevent what we know we all need. We need a multi-surface field. And Paul has mentioned that one of the reasons we need it is the weather patterns have changed and have eliminated a lot of ability to use certain fields. So I think it's time that we move forward. And I also think we need to determine how it was determined that the building and then site was historic, because that was a backroom deal done somewhere, somehow, and it ought to come to light who exactly is responsible for that. I also find it interesting that people are up in arms about certain aspects of becoming a field, but they have no problem that we spent $2.3 million on essentially a useless building. And if that hadn't been done, it would have made for more parking and whatnot. And compromises have already happened. That plan was to be a 60-90 baseball field. And we can no longer have one because we have a berm that was done there to help alleviate exhaust and whatever else. That cost us a 60-90 field. So we've already compromised as it pertains to baseball. There are other residents that live in those areas who are supportive of these projects, but if most of the people who are supportive have families, have young kids, one or two people working, and cannot be here and cannot attend all these meetings and have better things to do than constantly complain. I respect people that have a difference of opinion on the matter, but I think we have a unique opportunity with this piece of property. There are other adjacent properties that with foresight and financial backing we could potentially purchase that would allow us to address some of the concerns of people who are against the property. But again, more than anything, I want to say thank you to the Town Council for revisiting this. I appreciate the discussions I've had. I appreciate the dialogue, and I respect those who do share a differing opinion. I just wish it was a little bit more polite at times. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And given the smell of gas, I know the fire department is on their way. Forgive me, I'm going to close public comment. I know everyone's had an opportunity to speak at least once. And again, there is 2 sentences. Go ahead.
Name and address, please.
Good evening. ELZBEIETA JASTRZEBSKA. Elżbieta Jastrzębska, 215 Walton Street. I just don't understand if the resolution was approved and why it's open. It's, for me, doesn't make sense, and just to investigate, make something what was everybody happy. Now finding out that this lot has so much history there, historical values, and why we don't want to preserve this? I understand children needs to play, but I think we need to teach children history and Holocaust. You know, we can find alternative play for table children, but we should reserve and preserve what it is, 250 years.
Thank you very much. And forgive me, I am going to close public comment early, only given that there is a smell of gas. The fire department is on their way. I'm going to take a moment as we walk out the door to say that the hallmark of a civilized society is not how we agree, but how we disagree. I hope that this discussion on this issue that is so passionate and so important to everyone continues in every issue that we have going forward. And with that, shall we have a motion to adjourn?
I need a motion, right?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I know we're rushing, but there were.
It's all done. We've already
That's fine.
adjourned.
That's fine.
We've already
gas.
I
adjourned.
just wanted to respond to
I
people.
understand.